Hello everyone, and thank you Ambassador, and a very good morning to members of the Irish-Portugal Business Network and all those attending the
Okay. A very good morning. My name is Ralph Victory, the Irish Ambassador to Portugal, and it's my great pleasure to be joining you for this hybrid in-person and online event. So congratulations to the Ireland-Portugal Business Network for organising this and to everybody taking part. It's my even greater pleasure to hand you over now to Ireland's Minister for Housing, Local Government and Heritage, Mr. Darragh O'Brien, TD, who will now address us. Minister.
Hello everyone, and thank you, Ambassador, and a very good morning to members of the Irish-Portugal Business Network and all those attending this event in person and online. I'm really delighted to have this opportunity to extend my very best wishes to you all on World Maritime Day, and I congratulate you on choosing the blue economy as the theme of your conference. While I cannot unfortunately be present to join in your exchanges, the reason for this, I'm currently en route to Portugal, where tomorrow I'll be attending an OSPAR convention ministerial meeting, which is being hosted by the Portuguese government in Cascais. OSPAR is an important intergovernmental framework through which Atlantic-facing countries, including Ireland and Portugal, address threats to our shared marine environment. At this week's ministerial meeting, we'll review our previous 2010 to 2020 strategy and launch a new Northeast Atlantic environmental strategy covering the period now to 2030, so that together we can achieve our vision of a clean, healthy and biologically diverse Northeast Atlantic used sustainably. At a national level, Ireland has been really active in relation to blue economy issues. We fully understand and embrace the growth potential of the marine economy and the need to be resilient, innovative and creative when it comes to reinvigorating our blue economy. The state's Marine Spatial Plan, the National Marine Planning Framework, was launched by government on July 1st last and represents the outcome of a cross-government approach over the past 4 years to developing Ireland's first Marine Spatial Plan. The NMPF ranges across all areas of human activity that occur within our maritime area, from aquaculture to offshore renewable energy, to sea fisheries, to tourism. And for all of these areas, it provides a long-term spatial planning framework right out to 2040, providing a clear decision-making framework for marine regulatory bodies over an extended time period. I know that officials in my department have worked with officials in the Portuguese government and all EU member states to support development of each other's marine spatial plans, and I really look forward to continue those close working relationships in the coming years. In the next few months, the Irish Parliament will also enact a new Maritime Area Planning Bill, which is the state's leading response to much needed reform of marine governance. The bill provides the legal underpinning to an entirely new marine planning system, which will balance harnessing our huge offshore wind potential with protecting our rich and unique marine environment. The Maritime Area Planning Bill is the most significant legislative reform of maritime governments in the history of the Irish state. Enactment of the MAP Bill will provide the legislative underpinning and flexibility to allow Ireland to move in a phased manner towards a more centralised plan-led regime for offshore renewables, in line with the framework established for marine spatial planning. In addition, the bill will enable Ireland to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions so as to meet international decarbonisation obligations and provide for further employment opportunities in the blue economy. In conclusion, I hope that you will find these points useful in the context of your own discussions today, and I do look forward to learning about the outcome of your Blue Economy Conference, and I wish every continued success to the Irish-Portugal Business Network. Very
much, Minister. As it happens, due to urgent government business at home which arose since that video message was recorded, unfortunately Minister O'Brien won't now be able to travel to Portugal today, but I am delighted to confirm that Minister of State for Heritage and Electoral Reform, Mr Malcolm Noonan TD, will instead be leading Ireland's delegation to the OSPAR ministerial meeting in Cascais. So, as has been said, Ireland and Portugal are both maritime nations, so it's very apt that this conference is happening on World Maritime Day, and indeed may I wish everybody a very happy World Maritime Day. We extend our thanks and appreciation to Portugal for its leadership on ocean issues, not least in terms of hosting the OSPAR Ministerial meeting, but also ahead of the UN Oceans Conference, which will take place in Lisbon next year. As Minister O'Brien has outlined in his video message, Ireland is ramping up our activity on ocean issues at domestic national level, but we're also doing so at international level, including through our overseas development policy. The ocean is fundamental to our livelihoods. If the global blue economy were compared to a national economy, it would be the 7th largest in the world. And the ocean, as an economic entity, would be a member of the G7. Europe's blue economy provides 4.5 million direct jobs, many in regions where there are few alternatives. It encompasses all industries and sectors related to oceans, seas and coasts, whether they're based in the marine environment, for example shipping, fisheries or energy generation, or on land, such as ports, shipyards, land-based aquaculture and coastal tourism. But the ocean is also much more than an economic resource. It holds 97% of all our water and 80% of all life forms. It provides enough oxygen for every second breath and absorbs 50 times more carbon dioxide than our atmosphere. It transports heat from the equator to the North and South Poles, regulating our climate and weather patterns. The UN Sustainable Development Goals acknowledge that without healthy oceans, life on this planet is at risk. Without the ocean's resources, human societies around the planet lose the ability to sustain themselves. It's for these reasons that the work of international instruments such as OSPAR is so important. Domestically, as current chair of OSPAR and in our international development work, Ireland is playing our part on ocean issues. In particular, we're focused on ensuring that we support a clean, healthy and resilient ocean, but also that some of the world's poorest peoples who live in the areas most affected by environmental and other challenges are at the centre of our ambitions on ocean protection and resilience. In this regard, Ireland was pleased to join the World Bank's Pro-Blue Trust Fund this year, which is supporting the development of integrated, sustainable and healthy marine and coastal resources. And this is in addition to our contributions to the Fisheries Transparency Initiative in support of African small island developing states and through our Asian Development Bank Trust Fund in support of Pacific small island developing states. I'm going to finish at this point, as I need to depart very soon to welcome Minister Noonan to Portugal, but I likewise wish you a very successful conference and also look forward to hearing your ideas on how together we might further develop this exciting area of relations between Ireland and Portugal. Muito obrigado. Boa sorte. Thank you.
Bom dia. Welcome to all of you. Good morning to all of you. Well, first of all, thank you to those that are here. Thank you to those that are assisting online. It is with great pleasure that PwC is supporting this event as a knowledge partner, and I'm delighted to make some comments, initial comments on this event dedicated to blue economy. So, as you know, oceans and blue economy are a topic of great interest for PwC. We have been doing monitoring and surveys for a long time, over 10 years that we have been studying the blue economy, and as such, it's a great pleasure that we are introducing this event. So, starting by the beginning, if possible. Okay, so when talking about blue economy, let's get a bit on the fundamentals. So the ocean economy has a great value, of course, and it presents a huge opportunity in terms of economic balance. So the ocean economy is essential to the future and to the welfare of humankind. It's a key source of food, energy, minerals, health, leisure, and upon which hundreds of millions of people depend. In this context, it's essential that an integrated view of the ocean is implemented, a sustainable and inclusive approach that responds to most of the global challenges. We're talking about climate change, we're talking about scarcity of resources, we are talking about growing and feeding a larger number of population. So blue economy, in fact, is big, is relevant, and as mentioned, it has a really untapped potential. So 70% of the planet is covered by water. However, only 5% of the seabed has been mapped. So oceans hold 97% of our water and 80% of human forms, of life forms, sorry. So having this context, the European Commission announced that the European Green Deal is only possible when we consider a blue approach, and therefore it's necessary to change the mindset from a blue economy growth to a sustainable blue economy. And in this context, Portugal and Ireland, of course, have a big part when we consider that, at least from the Portuguese side, the maritime triangle of mainland, Madeira and the Açores include 48% of all marine waters. So it's obviously relevant, the numbers for Portugal. Regarding the sectors that can be developed under the blue economy, and as mentioned before, we have a significant volume. As mentioned, it would be, if it was a country, it would be the 7th largest economy in the world. And besides the traditional sectors that we are talking about tourism, about fisheries, about ports, there are also emergent sectors like biotechnology, bioeconomy, and desalinization that have a role to play and that are relevant in this context of the sustainable growth. In this context, it's also relevant to mention that the Portuguese Recovery and Resilience Plan is expected to allocate over 250 million euros to the blue economy. And in the EU, under the EU Investment Fund, there are also over 345 million euros that are to be approved with a focus on sustainable blue economy. So there is, in fact, a consensus, and there is a big focus from the relevant players on the development of a sustainable blue economy. Why this? Because it's clear that many of the indicators related to ocean health are trending in the wrong direction, meaning as a result of years of mismanagement and overexploitation of oceans' natural resources, the decline of fisheries and marine species, and also the topic of plastics in oceans are some of the topics of concern. This is being further relevant in the context of climate change and in the context of the most recent reports on IPCC's impact of climate change. So we need to ask ourselves, how can blue economy be developed, integrating and supporting this transition that needs to be made to a sustainable world that we need to ensure our survival and economy survival. So business as usual is no longer enough. It entails a great risk, not only to businesses, but to human life and to society as a whole. And so at the level of Europe and at world level, this topic, as you all probably understand, is of great relevance. We can see that through the international agreements that have been achieved, through the Sustainable Development Goals, through the European Green Deal, and so it's relevant that we understand that at the moment EU is focused on this topic. There are commitments that have been assumed, and they have resulted in action plans and commitments in different areas that go from climate change to renewable energies to circular economy. And sustainable finance has also a relevant role, because with the regulation that EU is establishing, they are basically aligning the financial sector with the targets that Europe has defined. As mentioned before, blue economy is also very relevant in the scope of SDGs. One of the 17 SDGs is really life below water, and they have targets dedicated to reduction of maritime pollution, sustainable fishing, and protection and restoration of ecosystems. So these are some of the concerns and some of the commitments that are in the agenda. So what we need basically is to think of a model of sustainable blue economy. If managed sustainably, the ocean does have enormous capacity to regenerate and provide substantial gains to society and business. In order to do so, in order to achieve this transition, we need to think of projects and to align investment, capital incentives towards the vision for a sustainable blue economy. This economy is the one that provides social and economic benefits for current and future generations, restores, protects, and maintains diverse ecosystems, and is based on clean technologies, renewable energy, and circular materials. So we need this shift to the redirection of mainstream finance to more sustainable development, and this is something that will scale positive changes that are necessary. So a purely financial oriented strategy is no longer enough. We need to integrate in the blue economy development these concepts, these ESG concerns, social and environmental focus, to take on the opportunities that these topics have, and to play the role that is relevant for the blue economy, for a transition to a sustainable economy. In the following panels in this event, we will have moments where we will see in practice how can blue economy be at the service of this transition and taking the opportunity that it entails. So the time really is now, as we are all aware. Companies, investors, citizens are calling for action, each one of them doing their own role. So investors' expectations are changing more and more. When requiring access to financing, you will need to demonstrate the concerns and how do you safeguard all the environmental and social aspects. You will have financial institutions divesting from carbon incentive sectors. Companies are more and more setting their targets and setting net zero targets. Talent is also concerned with climate change. And finally, society is more and more aware and sensitive to the topic. So we have here basically a full ecosystem that is pushing and driving sustainable approaches, and this comes from legal, regulatory frameworks, from sector initiatives that are being voluntarily assumed, from a framework for reporting, and finally from a set of external evaluations that are made on entities regarding their ESG performance. So in summary, the key actions that need to be taken to strengthen global ESG practices in blue economy include the integration and analysis of these ESG risks and opportunities related to blue economy, ensuring sustainable strategies, promoting transparency and communication on the practices and on the performance. Finally, to mention that PwC has been assessing the sea economy, the blue economy, for more than 10 years as part of the International Helm project, the Economy of the Sea Barometer, which some of you may know, and have also organized relevant forums to promote knowledge, information sharing, and to be following the history of sea basins. So, in order to share this knowledge, we are currently involved in a project that is the Digital Blue Economy platform that aims to provide the integrated information that we have found and to make it available to allow you and all that are interested in blue economy to understand the information and to make better decisions. So this platform has 3 layers of information. One is public platform, so you can have public access to all relevant KPIs on blue economy. Then we have also automated reports, which are sector or geography level sectors. And then finally, we can also make some more detailed and customized analysis based on the information we have been collecting for years. So that's it from my side. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm sure during the session we will see great examples of how can this blue economy contribute for a sustainable economy. Thank you very much.
I don't know. So, good morning. We are going to the first debate of this morning. I'm Raquel Abcacis. I'm the Executive Director of Invest Lisboa, and with me I have Ruben Eiras, that is the Secretary General for the Blue Economy, Innovation, Investment and Financing of Fórum Oceano, and Pedro Rocha Vieira, that is the co-founder and CEO of the BTI, that is one of the most important technological companies in Portugal nowadays. And we are going to talk about a big project that is beginning now, and it calls Atlantic Smart Ports, and the 2 of them are involved on this. Is a financed program of the European Union. But I will begin for you, Ruben, good morning, and for the strategy of the European Union, and specifically about the Atlantic Action Plan 2.0 that has been reviewed in 2020. And I wish you to talk a little bit about the new challenges of these changes that they made in 2020.
Good morning. Thank you, Raquel. Good morning to you all. Hello, Pedro again. Also, first of all, many thanks for the invitation to be here by the Chamber of Commerce of Ireland, and also by participating in this very important event to see what avenues for deepening the cooperation between our 2 countries, also members of the European Union, that we can, I would say, explore. We are both maritime countries, Portugal and Ireland, but more than maritime, we are ocean countries, because our economic exclusive zone goes, beyond the territorial sea, in a way of saying, like it happens, for example, in countries like Germany or Poland. So, in a way, Portugal is also a kind of an island, because it is a stretch of land in the Portugal mainland in the Iberian Peninsula. But most of its, I would say, maritime ocean area is by its archipelagos of Madeira and Azores, as we've seen it before. So more than, I would say, it's about 80% of the ocean territory of Portugal is because of that island territory. And as you can see, even by the intervention that the Mr. Ambassador from Ireland has made, there is a very big focus of Ireland in its foreign policy to support the small island development states. So also to support the deepening of the connectivity and also of the ocean protection of territories, which the ocean is a very big part of its territory. And and how this connects to the question that you have made. So Portugal, Spain, Ireland, and France belong to an integrated maritime policy group. It's called the Atlantic Strategy Committee. What this, I would say, policy, the aim of this policy group that is coordinated by the GMARI at the European Commission is to foster inter-regional policies for the maritime cooperation between these member states, with the aim of increasing the trade in that sea basin of the Atlantic. So the Atlantic Action Plan 2.0 that was revised is in line with the EU Green Deal, and it has the aim of fostering that economic activity, but in a sustainable focus. Like we heard in the last, I would say, in the keynote speech, that there's an ESG focus. The Atlantic Action Plan 2.0 has 4 pillars. One of the pillars, Pillar 1, which is coordinated and managed by Ireland. Each of the pillars is coordinated by one of the countries of the Atlantic Action Plan, is ports as blue economy hubs. What is here the idea is that ports are not only key for enhancing the connectivity and also moving the goods and services and people using ocean and the sea as a means of transport, but also can play a very important role in catalyzing new blue businesses that can operate in the sea. And why? Because the ports are the main interface between land and sea, obviously. And they are prepared in terms of logistics and other kinds of technical aspects to facilitate that interface. So when we look at the emergent sectors, like ocean renewable energies, like floating offshore wind, or offshore aquaculture, and other type of businesses that need a kind of access to the sea to develop their business, where they are going to be installed. What is the natural place? It's ports. And this opens a new perspective of a new opportunity that small and medium-sized ports that cannot compete in the same league as the big ports in container shipping or cruise, I would say, ships. They can diversify their revenue mix by turning themselves and having the conditions to attract startups and other types of companies that install themselves in the ports area with the right conditions for having access for developing those blue businesses at the ocean. Also, they can bring an innovation dynamics and ecosystem that will accelerate the digitalization and the greening of the ports. Because, as we know, to meet the targets of the climate change that we have by the EU Green Deal, and also the demands of the EU taxonomy, that innovation has to get fast and in the port's operations, but it also brings new opportunities for the ports to strategically position themselves. So the Atlantic Action Plan here opens that, I would say, perspective, and for summing up, with a different kind, a different perspective of cooperation in the European Union. And this is an important aspect. it's not only focused in the regional cooperation between the member states that are members of the plan, but also in the interregional cooperation with the member states that are not members of the plan, that are in the Atlantic, but also outside the EU area, in the EEA area, and also in the transatlantic dimension. And this is very powerful for creating a dynamic ESG blue economy using ports as blue economy hubs.
Thank you. Pedro, Ruben has advanced some key issues about these Atlantic smart ports. Why a private company, technological, is interested on this, especially when we know that the advance of the blue economy is not so fast as we expect?
Good morning, everyone. So first of all, thank you so much for the invitation to be here. It's a pleasure and an honor. And I double what Ruben has said regarding the connections we have with Ireland. So it's we have also an Irish partner in the consortium, and I think we have now Web Summit coming. It's also with an Irish partner, and so I think there's a lot of things in common that need to be leveraged. To clarify one thing, we were one of the pioneers of the startup ecosystem here in Portugal in terms of accelerators and building ecosystem of innovation from Portugal to the world, something that now is obvious. 11 years ago it wasn't. And today we are a collaborative innovation consultants, and what we believe is, and I think everyone is starting to realize that, is it's impossible to solve the challenges that both at the company level, at the value chain, and even at regional and global level we face. So we have to work in a collaboration, and to do collaborative innovation is to identify areas and a strategy to act on a very effective way around a specific roadmap of innovation, but integrating a lot of different players in the process. So that's where we are. We are experts on that. We are in Portugal, but we are also have presence in Brazil and Angola, and we are in more than 20 countries in terms of operation. And and we believe we work in different industries, not only, but we believe that the blue economy, it's a space that is really needs to speed up. But almost all industries are being disrupted, and the speed of change is increasing a lot. And the blue economy space, it's a very complex industry because it's a compound of industries, yeah, because it relates not to aquaculture, to transportation, to energy, to robotics, to minerals, to climate, to data, to so many biodiversity, so many different things. So it involves a lot of different value changes, and so it's even more complex, and therefore I believe it needs even more collaboration and effective collaboration. And it's a space where I believe Portugal and Europe and with the right partners, we can create a network of innovation to really push this agenda forward. But it's a topic, like we said in the presentation, that when we think about climate change and all the impacts, and looking at the ocean as probably one of the biggest assets that we have as a planet, is something that we have to do at a global level. So the ASBAN, when we started, I mean, this came from an experience that we had with the Portuguese government. In coincidence, Ruben was the Director General. We organized the Blue Tech Accelerator. Was a local initiative that connected ports and maritime transportation companies with startups around very specific issues. It was quite successful. This inspired a lot also the DGMAR, and I believe that this is one of the reasons also that DGMAR wanted also to push this agenda forward. And Ruben already highlighted this, but ports are really a key interface in terms of a focal point to develop the new blue hubs for the future. And so the vision of ASBAN was to create a network of players like VTI, and so it's mainly accelerators, clusters, and innovation companies that were investors and network organizations like the World Ocean Council. So it's very active players in this field. So the vision was, how can we leverage the ports, and especially, like Ruben was saying, not only working with the big ports, but also clustering smaller and medium-sized ports into clusters of specialization. So from there, we could drive new areas of new hubs and new areas of specialization and innovation for the ocean. And so the challenge is, okay, so how can we push that agenda when the harbors alone cannot work? So we have to involve corporations, investors, policymakers, clusters, and startups to build an agenda, a common agenda, and then create an approach that, in our perspective, was an acceleration approach with mentorship, with a platform for investment, so that we could identify good solutions that were common for the challenges of the port, and at the same time start identifying common needs. And we are focusing on 10 common challenges that we understand from the surveys that we are doing with the ports. And the project involves 390 ports from the Atlantic space. And the Atlantic space, it's all the countries that have an Atlantic coast. So Europe is driving this, but there's more countries involved, the US and Canada, and we are even partners from African countries, Brazil, so these 10 challenges, and to make open innovation programs, collaborative innovation programs, to attract startups that have solutions to those specific challenges. How a cluster of ports can become more, reinvent themselves and be specialized in offshore energy, or specialized in offshore aquaculture, or in maritime robotics, or different kind of things. And at the same time, facing common challenges like decarbonization of ports, decarbonization of transportation, digitalization of ports, the smart infrastructure, so many other things. But how can you biodiversity and all that? So the ASPEN has this goal to work with the ports and build ecosystems around those strategies of specialization to bring, to build these new hubs for the blue economy. And what we've realized so far is that they realized that there was a very good feedback and engagement from the ports. They understand that they are being disrupted and they need to do things, but they lack the time and the culture and resources to organize themselves to be more innovative. And also, like Ruben said, they also have different resources from the bigger ports. But they can work together with bigger ports, because bigger ports sometimes are more focused on transportation and logistics. So how can you be smaller, can be satellites of the bigger ports? And so one of the things is changing the culture of the ports, because they are too close on themselves on the core activities or lack of resources. And so how could you create synergies? So ASPAN is creating that layer of synergies and changing at a broader level the perception of change, need for collaboration. That's really important. Also, because of this, there's a lot of initiatives happening in this space, a lot of accelerators, a lot of programs. But what we felt is that there was not a big connection with the ports and with the needs. So the HASBAN project also wants to work as an interface, not only to implement their own program, but is resources that we are bringing also to leverage existing initiatives to be more connected with the ports, more connected with the real needs of the market, and also to build, this is on the ecosystem of accelerators and programs, but also on the investment side, and there was PHC that they manage the Blue Invest platform. They're also trying to leverage and to create synergies at that level. Also, how can we bring investors and also with Atlantic's action plan and all the DGMAR, there's a lot of funding coming. So how can you link the smart funding to the real needs of the economy? So I think ASBAN validates where the ports want to go. They validate the real needs. They gather an ecosystem around very specific objectives, and they also validate to the investors and the policymakers where should the investment be made in order to really speed up the impact of all these things. So the objective of ASBAN is kind of through these initiatives to become maybe the beginning of a new area of a broader ecosystem of the blue economy that creates synergies at so many different levels, among ports, among the accelerators, with policymakers, and also these hubs of specialization around specific challenges. Yes, and so it's going quite well. We just had the first review from the European Commission, DGMAR. They were very impressed with the results we were able to have so far. And
can you speak us a little bit about the results? Because
it was a lot in line with what we said.
In what stage you are at this moment?
Was this understanding the needs, the real needs of the ports, and clustering them, and coming with a common agenda and roadmap of innovation, and understand also bringing together the different players at accelerators, corporates, investors at the European level, creating, highlighting the synergies with policy making, with other investments. This is already huge, because what happens a lot of times is that we start doing stuff without having a clear perspective of what is the core and the common agenda. This is a new space. There's a lot of new funding coming, but it's very little for the demands of this sector has. And there's a lot of agendas, for example, on the decarbonization. We talked not only with ports, but with the maritime transportation companies. They are really suffering in order how to speed up this agenda. So unless there's a joint forces, is very difficult to get there. And so I think to start with, this is already one of the big accomplishments. So now we are launching the programs to bring up the startups and the solutions, and to start connecting that with the ports and all these ecosystems that we are creating.
Okay.
And if I may to add regarding the results, we have now 80% of the ports that support ASBAN directly. So we're talking about 43 ports that support us directly. From Portugal, France, Spain, Ireland, Norway, Netherlands, Russia, and Canada. 90% of those 43 ports in the survey that was made. In fact, it was the first deliverable was coordinated by the Irish, our Irish partner, and also cluster organization, the Irish Maritime Development Office. 90% of those ports pointed as the first priority for the next 5 to 10 years to become blue economy hubs of the emerging sectors of the economy. And this is, I would say, quite a big change that is emerging in ports mentality. Because I think if we were to do the survey, I was quite, I would say, a bit, I would say, stressed with the answers that we're going to get. Because I think if we did the survey 2 years ago, we wouldn't have this amount, I would say, of answers in this direction. And why? Because the innovation and climate agenda is pushing also that change. Then
Do you believe it's because the pandemic?
The pandemic has made, I would say, that has contributed.
Accelerated?
Yes, it has contributed to that change of mentality and of perspective. Concerning the Irish reality in that respect, and concerning the Irish ports, the participation is heavily, and there are ports for the small medium size from areas like Donegal and Killybegs that are very, very proactive in changing and wanting to change their, I would say, business model, and that comes from force of will comes from a synchronization between the port authority and also the local politics. So it has that, I would say, so that's a very important element, and that's also why we have in our consortium the CPMR, which is an association of political organization for the maritime regions in Europe. But going back to the results, another key element, as Pedro has stressed, is the gap that exists with the accelerator community. So ports want that kind of innovation. They are open to become blue economy hubs, but the accelerators, as they are focused, are not, I would say, prepared, or are not do not have the competencies to reach out for what the ports need to how to engage. So here, ASPAN is not only a good idea for a new buzzword and to get some EU financing. It's really a market need and it's really now the time to make that happen. In fact, we were quite surprised because last week we had the EU Commissioner Elisa Ferreira mentioned in her EU Parliament intervention ASPAN as a EU flagship project, really in a perspective to build that ecosystem of connection, of collaboration, to engage all the actors. Then the second, or third result that is that we've got at this moment, and Betai, who is the coordinator of the project, has done, of course, a great job, is getting the challenges from the innovation challenges from the ports. And also I was quite stressed because I said, well, my God, I know ports are very conservative, are very, I would say, not very, I would say, prone to share this kind of information. What we have so far, we have 20 of those 43 ports that already shared their 5 main innovation challenges. So when you look at the average of the EU projects that involve ports with this kind of approach, we have about 5 ports involved. So we have now 20 ports from these various geographies that want to engage and want to try this approach. So I think here we really have a very concrete opportunity, especially in the collaboration between Portugal and Ireland, to find common challenges and clusters where we can effectively cooperate in doing business in a profitable way in the ocean, but also in a sustainable way. And here I would like to stress that, for example, sectors like fisheries that are now being attacked and because of some of the practices and the impact that they have in the ocean. That's also an area of high opportunity for countries like Portugal and Ireland to cooperate, for example, in developing new technologies for precision fishing that diminishes the bycatch, new propulsion systems that have less energy impact in the fishing operations. If we think of this, we say, well, what is needed for this to happen? We need ports involved. So we're not talking also about trade ports, commercial ports, but the fishing ports. Fishing, and here from also we have Doca Pesca involved, which has about a network of 34 ports. And those ports have a potential for local impact that is, it's, amazing what could be achieved. Because locals that once, only had an activity of fishing, they can have an activity in fishing, but in a more sustainable way. They can explore the potential for the ocean renewable energies. They can farm the ocean because now macroalgae is gaining ground in the food, cosmetics and health area. And it is, I would say, an asset, a bioasset, that can be farmed also in the Atlantic, it is already farmed in the Pacific. And here we have, several species in the Atlantic that can, I would say, be exported in that way. But again, what we need for the operations, besides, having a very interesting biotech approach and so on, we need a port for the operation. And the port has to be prepared for the logistics and for also the circularity of the processes. This is also something that is very key in the ASPAN approach. So I would say, for simplifying, that the ASPAN approach in this also has a mantra that is this: the digitalize, decarbonize, and circularize. Oh. So to have a full, or say a sustainable life cycle, and also to to take advantage, also because of COVID, of the trend to shortening the supply chains. So there is a lot of movement of relocation from several parts of the supply chains that were far away from the from Europe. So countries like Portugal and Ireland can receive part of that relocation. And with the digitalization, that means that you will have more opportunities to locate factories with 3D printing that can make a just-in-time production of some components that can be fastly expedited through ports. Mm-hmm. So, as we can see, all in less than 5 minutes of conversation, we've covered 5 sectors or more. So to say that now we, as Pedro has stressed, now the focus is to launch the acceleration program next year. We have an open call for startups rolling at the moment. So you have until the 15th of October startups so it's a first batch of startups for the ASPAN. And the aim is to launch the program next year with 450 startups. And at the end of the program, at the demo day, we'll have 30 pilots to be implemented in 30 ports. And there will be 30 concrete solutions that will be rolling on the ground to be invested by private investors.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Now, I think it's the last question maybe for the two of you. And you talked a little bit about that, but I want to hear you. What do you think about the consequences, the side consequences of the application of ASPAN? And if you believe that it will be important to strengthen the relationship between the countries, and we are here talking about the relationship between Portugal and Ireland that are ocean countries, but there are others here in this side of the Atlantic, but in the other side. And if you believe that the proofs of the ASPAN could change a little bit the vision of the politicians and the belief that the blue economy is really the future. Beginning for you.
Then Ruben can complement. Yes, at different levels. First level, yes, to strengthen relationship between different countries is very important. To build this, a lot of times we are always competing and with each other, and so this kind of programs bring together ecosystem players and really creates synergies. And we are just at Aspen level, to give our example, the level of collaboration, the willing to partner, the openness to other opportunities that go beyond the Aspen is evident, and so it's really strengthening relationships. Then is also this is only within the core partners. Then we are also seeing a lot of interest, and so we are talking with different ecosystems, and let's say Canada or the US or Brazil, and this is also strengthening relationships with other clusters, an exchange of experience that ties its multilateral cooperation around a very specific agenda. Countries like Canada and the US that are so important for Europe and for countries like Ireland and Portugal, this kind of programs really strengthens. Also Brazil. In the case of Brazil, for example, and this is the third level, is that the model of Aspen is being recognized as a very interesting model to be replicated in other areas. So for example, Brazil, we're already working there to potentially replicate similar programs to structure the ecosystem in Brazil, and then maybe even at the Latin American place. And Ruben can talk about many other contacts that we've been having to replicate the Aspen model in other regions, because this is more for the Atlantic space, where we are. And at the political level as well, I think one of the things that we're seeing as well, and I mentioned before, is the will and how Aspen is already contributing for synergies between other initiatives. I mentioned Blue Invest, but there's so many initiatives, and I've seen a genuine interest for collaboration and creating synergies and not overlapping among different European initiatives, which is, I think it's very important because to leverage well resources, and also, for example, CPMAR is one of our partners, and they are really and there are more partners that are connected with a lot of regions and with policy making. So we're also trying to create synergies at the level of better policy making towards a really concrete agenda, so that we can leverage the resources the best way possible at European and regional and even local level. So I really believe that this program is bringing to a sector like an area like blue economy a lot of new dynamics that are creating a lot of interesting results. And it's before we thought it was an intention, and we believe it will happen, but it's already happening, and so we're really happy about it.
Well, when I came here, when I was coming here to this conference, I was going to the timeline of my YouTube, and it showed up the last video from Greta Thunberg. I'm not a fan of Greta, just a disclaimer, but she has, a certain, kind of a wake-up call in terms of conscience. And the last intervention, I don't know where she made, but it was the blah blah, I would say, speech. And she has a point in there, to say that we need less talk and more action. Action, of course, with focus. That also having the awareness that this is not, I would say, easy to do. Being, ESG, performance and all of that, it demands to go to the nitty-gritties of the processes, to look at supply chains. So it's not, I would say, exuberant every day. So it needs to look at the nuts and bolts of everything. A quick example, BMW recently launched a concept car which the car is designed to be completely recycled. And it's an electric car, and why they did that? They revisited every step of the supply chain. And why? Because they came about, when they did their calculations, that building an electric car in the same way they built a conventional car, the carbon footprint and environmental footprint of the electric car production will be higher than the conventional one. So I think here what Portugal and Ireland can augment with Aspen and beyond Aspen is first enhance the amount of projects that we do together between the two countries. This is something that we at Forum Oceano, as a Blue Cluster, is working with IMDO from Ireland in that respect, finding a common agenda. And when we start working together, we start, building a team and a like-minded approach to certain aspects. Then it becomes logical, well, if we already work together in this way, why don't we invest together? So I think we should have a focus that being Portugal and Ireland ocean countries and having also in their foreign policy a very high interest in ocean. The Galway statement has an important impact in the EU ocean policy. We are going to have the UN Ocean Conference here in Lisbon next year. Why not to build a path that becomes a consequence to have, for example, an investment fund for blue economy projects, or an investment investment fund and investment platform that we jointly we use our forces to go and make concrete solutions. Concrete solutions that digitize shipping for diminishing emissions, for automating ports, for diminishing the emissions, but also augmenting their operational efficiency, and so on. So going directly to action to solve and also to show.
Prove and then.
Exactly, and to show, and for that, politicians then, they have the stage to say that we are great. So, but we have to do our part also. And so criticize less and work and focus more in building solutions.
And just wanted to add one final thought is that like tech was a big buzzword some years ago, and then as time passed, you start having so many different funds and companies and countries specialize in different areas. I think blue economy is a big buzzword, but it involves so many different things. It's impossible to have the resources to compete in all the fronts. So programs like this, also this layer of specialization and that brings to clusters and to regions and to countries is essential, because it's impossible for a country like Portugal or Ireland to be good at everything.
Yes.
So they have to evolve and understand where they can be competitive at the global level, and so to create global centers of excellence and to attract the real players
Synergies
here and to create common programs. You have to really understand where you can be a global player, a regional player, a local, and that is essential, because I see in Portugal, every mayor wants to do blue economy in a generic way. Now it's changing. Now they understand, okay, no, I'm more prone to do offshore energy. I'm more prone to do aquaculture. They are starting to specialize. So they're not competing with the same level of funding, not not trying to attract all the same kind of players. So if you see this at regional and the different levels, it's very important. And otherwise, we are going to spend a lot of waste resources and compete in every front, and I think it's not good. So specialization and collaboration on very specific things, it's essential for the growth of this and for really effective cooperation.
Okay, thank you both. I hope this was useful for you and for the ones who are follow us by the different platforms, and we hope that ASBAN could be the first step for an explosion of the blue economy on the world, because we need that, and I think it's a good step. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I don't know if there are any questions. Maybe? Yeah, you have? Sorry, we'll take a few questions and then we'll have a coffee break.
Hi, thank you. My name is Susanne. I am happy to be here. I founded something called Ocean Community, moved to Portugal 2 years ago. Thank you, Ireland, and thank you, Portugal, for this fantastic event and the panel. Good to see you, Pedro, Ruben. Listening to this, my question is, how do you intend to create a sense of urgency? How do you intend to ensure that the ASPAN project will turn into execution? Because from where I sit, and we are all in this together as a blue ecosystem, there is a sense of urgency, and there are a lot of fragmentation in all these conferences, government bodies, amongst corporates, accelerators, that we need to all together try to work with. So we get the force, not working against each other, as Pedro was saying. So more than spinning back to, and before I spin back to the question, I come from the country of Greta Thunberg, so I have to just say this. She's a child, she's a whistleblower, and she did one thing right. She spoke up on behalf of our children, all our families, to say there is an urgent moment here. But she's also now, Ruben, I agree with you, she's calmed down and says, listen to science. And grown-ups like us, we should do what she is asking us to do, pay attention. But yeah, there's been a lot of noise around Greta. I felt I had to say something about that. Bringing it back to the question then, specifically in the ASPAN project, and I love what you're doing through BETA-I and together jointly capturing the startups, ideators, encouraging them up. Will you get ports to execute? Will you have KPIs? Will you have lead ports? So having a few lead ports raising their hands saying, we will implement, we will execute, we will measure. I would love to see that. So that's a long question. Thank you for letting me talk.
I don't know if I got everything because the sound was a bit strange. But I think, of course, KPIs, yes. I think we present a lot of KPIs at all the sessions. We have KPIs for everything. But I think to get to a point, that's why we are spending so much time in this phase of understanding the real needs and organizing the ecosystem. That's why before jumping too fast, although we are already doing a program that is more transversal on more obvious things, so to observe and to organize and to influence that these specializations, these common challenges start to emerge, it's very important, because only after that are you able to create synergies with the different ecosystems and to collaborate in a more effective way. So I think we are in a completely different position than we started when we started. So a lot of things are emerging and starting to make sense. And so I think with this information, we are going to be much more focused and trying to also to contribute with the different kind of stakeholders, like we've been saying, to create those kind of synergies and also to work with other programs and ecosystems to bring that efficiency and specialization. I don't know if it answers to your question. IPBN is a very short-term program. It's only 2 years. It's very ambitious. It's difficult to deliver everything that we're trying to do. But one of the expectations is that also by being fast can highlight exactly what can be the directions afterwards and can also inspire new policy and new programs so that then they can explore directions that can be highlighted during the IPBN. So I think this is the first sprint of many things, and I believe that IPBN will contribute a lot for the next phases to be even more focused. But as you know, this is a marathon, so we have to be patient, but to work together, not to be frustrated, not to criticize too soon, not to. It's a soft game that we have to all be able to dance together. But I don't know if I answered your question.
If I may compliment very briefly. So first of all, finally we meet. So and so we have to listen to science, but science must also be linked to innovation. And the big gap that exists here, one of the big gaps, is the science being translated into innovation. But being translated to innovation, what does imply? That implies that someone has to put skin on the game, like the Americans say. And what does that imply? Finance must come into play. But finance to come into play, it has to have something it has to invest in something. Where it is that deal flow for investing. If we take into account in the last, so since the pandemic started, there is at least in average one blue investment fund that was created per month. So World Ocean Council at the moment has a network of 60 blue investment funds. And then you ask, where does money goes to? So that's here the situation, is the deal flow. So simplifying, what IPBN is, and the model is trying to do, is to create, a good deal flow of good quality, deal flow where investment funds and investors can come in and scale it up. Why in ports? Because ports have one thing. Ports have to have standards for interoperability, because connectivity is key for ports to cooperate. So, if one solution works in one port, in theory, it will work in any other port. The situation here is to do it in an ecosystem of innovation that is reliable. And the situation that we have now, like Peter stressed, is that it's fragmented and disconnected. So IPBN is about connecting and to get where we have to get. Of course, we have the diagnosis. We have to listen to science, but then we have also to have to know how to make innovation work. Because if not, we're going to pass from an emergency to a frustration, and with a high anxiety in the middle. So, and that means that, to sum up, here going to finance also means that we have to have standards to measure the impact. Then comes ESG. And here EU taxonomy is not a perfect framework. It has many gaps, but at least it has a very powerful aspect. It's a supranational instrument, and also cautioned by the European Commission and the European Investment Bank. So it has a higher credibility in several aspects. So to say that the startups that also are going to be, evaluated and selected through Aspen, we will be applying the EU taxonomy. So this is also be a test bed for, seeing the investability that is permitted by EU taxonomy, but also of projects in that area. So, and like Pedro said, we are in a marathon but at a certain point, we have to speed up. But we have to run in the right direction and in the right way.
So now that I got the other question, just adding three things. One is that Europe is a very ethical and mature market, and a lot of times it creates issues of competitiveness because of that. 92% of the research done in Europe doesn't go to the market. We are very good at creating research and very bad at bringing that research to the market. And we see that as perverting competition, because when you link research funding to the market, the European Commission says it's not legal because it's creating disadvantage to the market. So this is a change of mindset that is changing. China doesn't think the same, and the US neither. So we have to also to understand that. And the way to change things is by understanding the market needs. Even the investors, they are looking, for some of the trends, but they more and more, especially on B2 markets, they want to understand where is the real need of the market. So by identifying common needs and make it very explicit, this makes a call that this is a market need, this is a big trend, and this is where startups should be more created, research should be more oriented, and funding should be more injected. So very important. And the third is what I think at the political level is trying to be made to make structural changes, is like with Green Deal, the taxonomy, all these kind of layers. With behind the taxonomy, there will come also sustainable finance. This will go into the ESG compliance. This is going to change fundamentally how investment is going to be done and assessed and measured. European blue economy is a very cash-intensive area. So when shipping have 25 years, or ports even more. So if there are sustainable finance measures behind it, the kind of investment is also going to be different. So if you combine market-driven with these big changes in terms of policy, it's going to be, and if you organize the ecosystems to be more specialized, I think we're going to be more efficient. But we are, I think, in a new cycle, but I think we'll know this, but it's important to highlight.
Okay, thank you very much. Very, very good. We are going to have a coffee break, 10-15 minutes, and we'll be back. Thank you.
My name is Aoife Healy, for those who haven't met me before. I'm the chair of the Ireland-Portugal Business Network, and I'm delighted to be here with you all this morning on this, our first conference on the blue economy, which is a follow-up to our annual sustainability event, which we do in March every year. I'd like to thank Arnold and Ellis for putting it together, and I'd like to thank all of our guest speakers for attending today. It's really important to us that your contribution is amazing, and we really appreciate it. And with that, I'm going to start by introducing Ana Brito e Melo from Wavec. And so, Ana, I'm going to get you to start by introducing you yourself, and then we'll talk a little bit about what you do at Wavec afterwards.
Thank you. Good morning to all, and I'd like to thank the invitation for this event. I'm very pleased to be here. I'm Ana Brito Melo, and I work at Wavec, which is a non-profit organization devoted to the promotion of marine renewable energies and other technologies related with the ocean. My background, I'm a civil engineer. This is my first degree, but I've been working all the time since I finished my degree. I've been working in wave energy. So this is my, my studies, my research was always around wave energy in the beginning, and then with the evolution of Wavec also on offshore wind.
Okay, and can you tell us a little bit about the formation of Wavec and why it was formed and when it was formed?
It was created in 2003, and this was, I think it was, I'm sure it was an idea of the developer. He was developing a very innovative project on wave energy, and he was willing to develop this project in Portugal, in the Atlantic coast. And he came to Portugal, and he got in touch with the Technical University, Instituto Superior Técnico, to ask some support for the development of this project. I was working at that time at IST, and we realized that it was missing an entity in Portugal that could give this direct support to developers, because it's not the role of the universities. They do very good research, and there was a very good team working on wave energy, but it was missing some organization that could make this link between the regulatory agencies, those that will give the license to develop or to install a project in the waters. It was missing some understanding about our potential, how to connect the industry with the academia, and I think this was our role. That's how we were created.
Mm-hmm. So you started with wave energy, and how has Wavec evolved since 2003?
We started with wave energy because at the time was what was being investigated. It was wave energy. But later on, in 2007, we were approached by the utility in Portugal, EDP, to investigate the potential for offshore wind. And this was our big chance to we look into offshore wind. At the time was only fixed turbines, and it seems this was not an option for Portugal because we have big depths close to the coast. But at the time there was a floating offshore wind being investigated. And so we organized a workshop. We invited international experts in this area, and so it was. I think it was how we got involved in offshore wind, because this just started at that time, 2007, 2008, and so this was how Wavec, and then we realized that Wavec was the acronym for Wave Energy Center. But since we got involved in offshore wind, but we didn't want to miss Wavec, our acronym, so we changed it to Wavec Offshore Renewables. That's how we call us now.
Yeah, and how is the field of offshore renewables developing at the moment, Anna? I mean, 80% of the world is covered by water, and yet we use so little of the potential of energy available. How is it, and these projects take a long time, so how is it developing at the moment?
It's incredible. I mean, it's evolving very, very quick, I think. I mean, there was we know that in the North Sea we have offshore wind farms at the CISA standard technology. But this is growing, is evolving for floating offshore wind, but also for fixed offshore wind in deeper waters. So there are organizations, international initiatives like OREAC, the Ocean Renewable Energy Action Coalition, pushing for the development of offshore wind in the world. And so we see many initiatives going on around the world, and in Portugal there is also much attention for offshore wind.
And in the potential for wave energy, it hasn't really been commercialized yet. How far away from commercial wave energy are we?
Yes, wave energy, so it's an emerging technology, let's say, compared with offshore wind, because in offshore wind we have all this background from the wind in land, so it was more easy to progress to the sea. Wave energy has been progressing slowly, but is achieving very important milestones, and it is recognized as a very important source in the future, when we will have a big share of offshore wind, of solar energy. We will need wave energy to smooth the power. When talking about managing grid systems, we will understand that it will be very important to have also wave energy. So it's far, answering to your question, it's far yet from commercialization, in the sense that it's not yet a commercial technology, but it's giving steps for that. And there are, we see good signs of projects that are progressing. I give you an example. In Portugal, Core Power, it's a Swedish technology. They tested the prototype in Scotland, and now they are building the first wave farm in Portugal. So this will be the first wave farm in the world on wave energy.
And you're working with them?
Yes, certainly. Since their start in this business, we have been following their progress step by step, as it has to be done. Mm-hmm. So.
And Anna, is there targets being set for how much marine renewable energy will contribute to the overall energy supply of, let's say, Portugal, but any given country?
Yes, there are targets, and it's very good that there are organizations setting up these targets, because this is, I think it's what gives good signs for investors, that when the governments put a target, but not only a target in an action plan. But there are, I mentioned before, the Ocean Renewable Energy, the Ocean OREAC, Ocean Renewable Energy Action Coalition. I mentioned this one because it's a recent one, and it's very important because it's led by big players in the offshore wind like Ørsted, Equinor, Shell, and they all together launched this initiative to push a target of 1,400 gigawatts by 2050. And simultaneously, they are looking to the potential of each country. And for instance, in Portugal, there is a recent map that shows that our potential is for offshore, it is around 130 gigawatts. Of course, when we talk about these numbers, we need to say that it always depends on how far we go from the coast and with what is the current technology. I mean, we cannot explore the full potential of the ocean. So these numbers taking into account that we can go up to 200 kilometers from the coast, reaching water depths of 1,000 meters. all this area in Portugal, talking about Portugal now, we could have a potential of 130 gigawatts, from which around 14 is for fixed offshore wind and the rest for floating offshore wind. But when I say these numbers, just because it seems big numbers, also to clarify that at the end we also need to take into account that there are other users in the ocean. So we need to take into account also environmental areas. So then it's not the full potential that we can explore, but at least this gives an indication what is the size of the potential in Portugal.
And that's just for offshore wind, is it?
This is for offshore wind, yes. I'm not mentioning wave energy, but of course wave energy complements this potential. So it's a huge potential. And related with this potential, there are targets, what we want to achieve. And the targets now, it's for 2050, because there is this urgency to decrease our emissions of CO2. And so it's very good that there are targets set up at European level and also on the international level.
You mentioned investors earlier on, Anna, as how they would be looking at these projects. How is Wavec funded, and how important is, private investment as opposed to public investment?
Private investment, is very important. Public investment as well. When we talk about public investment, we talk, depending on the status of the technology, for technology in its infancy, we need grant support, and we need, and this support from the government is what gives good indications for investors. The private investment, of course, is needed, but there is, it will depend on the signs of the government. If there is a stable policy, if there is a clear process for licensing a project, I think private investment will come from the signs of the government.
But at the moment it's principally EU funding, or is it Portuguese government funding?
Presently is mainly European funding. There is also some funding in Portugal, Blue Fund, for instance, and Core Power is developing its project with some national funding. But let's say the biggest funding comes from the European Commission. And to give an example, we have now a project that just started last week, and it is 45 millions from the European. It's a 45 millions project with 34 millions funded from the European Commission, and the rest private investment.
So typically, who are your clients, Anna?
Our clients, they are very diversified. We have developers that approach us with an innovative idea, and they want they need our support, how to come from an idea to a full project or a prototype in the water. And we give all this support. So we start with using our numerical tools to optimize the technology, to optimize the performance. This is done at a very early stage. Then we can assist on the overall development, interaction with stakeholders, public engagement. The environmental part is very important, because we need to understand that these technologies, they go to the water, they will have some interaction, and we want to understand from the beginning what can be this interaction and how we can mitigate. So this is a very important component. And then the whole going to when the prototype is built, there are issues related with the moorings, and we can use our tools to design good mooring systems. talking about the strategies of maintenance, all the logistics around a device, we assist on this process. And then when the device is in the water, there are a lot to do, monitoring, evaluating the performance. So we do all this work with the developer since the beginning. But we also work with international organizations like the ocean energy systems within the International Energy Agency. And for this organization, we give support on the communication. All activities done by this organization are promoted and communicated to the public by Wavec as a service we rendered for these organizations. And we do market reports for the European Commission. For instance, a recent study was to understand with the pipelines of projects we have that the companies are presenting, what will be the needs for funding to achieve all these projects. And so we do this kind of studies and benchmarking studies for utilities or for investors when they want to understand how to enter in this business. We give advice on that. So it's a mixture of developers, international organizations, utilities, investors. These are our typical clients.
So if, for example, we're a network and a lot of these would be small, innovative companies, they came to you and said, look, I've got this idea and I want your help with commercializing it. What does that process look like and how long does it typically take?
Difficult to say in terms of time, because it much depends on the type of technology and what are the needs of the client, because they also have their own teams. So we have for several aspects. A project of this kind has much complexity. I think it's multidisciplinary. There are different areas. So we just see what are the needs of this client, and we direct our efforts to respond to this need. But I will say that if a developer wants to see what is the viability of his concept, it starts by understanding if it's a viable concept in terms of the technology, the economics. I would say it starts at this point. And then if the project, it's a project that seems to be viable, seems to be, it's a good idea, then there is a long process to go, but it starts by dealing with the licensing process. It takes some time to have a license to develop a project, to put a project in the water. And there is all studies that the developer needs to do in order to have to build his prototype. To say how long it takes, I think I cannot. I don't. It depends so much. I mean, it's talking with the developer.
Yeah. But if you've had a success story, what did that look like?
It can be years, for instance, because we should not run to have a device in the water. It has to follow a process that step by step, where you start by doing tank testing. You have to be sure that you have a good device to go to the water, because we cannot go to the water with a device that seems not to be robust or that was not well validated in tank testing, because it's millions that you will put in the water, and you want to be confident about this technology. So it takes some time to do your experimental. Because it's at this step that we are talking about wave energy. Of course, if it's offshore wind, it's a different scale. Offshore wind, I mean, we need to have two different approaches if it's offshore wind or if it's wave energy. In wave energy, we want to be careful, and because there were some failures in the past, which is normal when we talk about innovation, we certainly have projects that do not succeed well. And so to be sure that we are progressing and that we are learning from these failures, we have to do this with some careful approach. And that's what we see these developers that now are coming to projects in the water. I mentioned Coque Power because it's an example here in Portugal, but I see in other countries this is being done following a consistent, and it's being encouraged by organizations like Wave Energy in Scotland, or even the European Commission. They are encouraging a careful process to put a device in the water, not to run in not following the right approach. Mm-hmm. There is a recent document that was published by a group of entities, including Wave Energy Scotland, the European Commission, and others, and which is a stage gate or performance evaluation guidelines. How do you develop a project taking into account that there are some evaluation steps that you need to follow?
And so, in its application now, Anna, I think you recently started looking at aquaculture projects. How does that look in that? You know, obviously aquaculture is about sustainable fishing in as much as it's about, you know, a food product. So how is your work relating to a practical project like that?
Yes, that's quite recent to expand our activities to aquaculture. And that's, again, because we see signs in Portugal that there is an opportunity for developing offshore aquaculture. And it's very similar to, our tools, the tools that we developed for marine renewable energies, they can be easily applied to offshore aquaculture. For instance, in marine renewable energies, you need to do some site selection to see the best place to install a device. You use the same tool for offshore aquaculture. You need to see what are the best areas for offshore aquaculture. Of course, the conditions will be different. For wave energy, you want to have an area with big resource, big potential. For offshore aquaculture, this is not the condition you require. It will be other conditions, the quality of the water, or so. The tools are, we use the same tools. We use our knowledge from marine renewable energies about on reliability of big devices in the water. If we go to offshore, we go with big devices. So there is some share of knowledge between these areas. Mm-hmm. So for us, it was quite natural to expand our activity for offshore aquaculture, and we are just starting now. We are following the initiatives that are being developed in Portugal. There is interest from the government. We see this on the opportunities for funding. So we are going to this area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a huge area, and I know that in Ireland it's of particular interest. Our waters suit it, and but it does create its own problems too. I'm going to ask my last question because I'd really like questions from the audience in a minute. So, Anna, obviously it's a very interesting organisation, and you do have a huge amount that you help companies who are developing products to do. At what stage do you think companies should approach an organisation like yours in order to advance their idea or their product?
At what stage?
Should a company who's developing an idea or a product approach a company like you to start increasing the scope of what it's doing?
we are very open. I mean, whenever there is some company willing to develop a project in Portugal, we are very happy to understand what are the needs of this company, how we can respond and give a solution for their technology. And just occurred to me to mention our initiative that we are with another entities in Portugal, 5 organizations. We are working to have to promote our test sites. In fact, we have in Portugal 2 areas, Aguçadora, where several devices have been tested there, and more to the north in Viana do Castelo, where wind float is installed, a floating offshore wind farm. And we would like to promote these 2 areas, these test sites, for other developers to use the site. And this is an initiative that was set up by a group of entities to work together to create an organization that could manage these test sites. So, because this is very important for developers, it's one of the needs of the developers, is to have a space in the ocean where the licensing process is easy, because it's an area that is very well studied and all data exist. And it's the beginning, let's say, of a development on wave energy, is to have a place in the sea where they can have support for their tests, and that's what we have been working in this last months.
And do you only work with Portuguese company, or is this open to other companies?
No, of course not. I mean, it's mainly, indeed, it's mainly from companies outside Portugal. Mm-hmm. I mean, here in Portugal, we collaborate a lot with other partners. And we are together in several initiatives. But our clients are companies that we attract, that we'd like to attract to come to Portugal, to invest in Portugal, and to develop their projects here. Mm-hmm.
Well, to me it sounds like Portugal is really at the forefront of this, and thank you, Anna. I'd like to ask our members of our audience have any questions now. Arnold, yeah.
Hi, sorry, it's quite loud. I'm Finbar Howell, Technical Director of KRI Renewables. So noting that there's a lot of kind of grid constraints that are going to come into play with the large deployment of offshore renewables, and the fact that the LCOE, the levelized cost of energy of offshore renewables, is currently higher than onshore, and with everything that we've been hearing recently about the hydrogen economy, what kind of timescale do you envision for the coupling of offshore renewables with electrolyzers to produce green hydrogen in a commercial sense?
Thank you for the question. In fact, the production using renewable energies to produce hydrogen, it's one of our most recent projects. It's a project led by EDP, and it's funded by national funding. So it's very interesting that you mention this topic, because we are much interested in this. There is much interest in this area now in Portugal on the production of hydrogen, and I think it will be part of our, production of hydrogen, storage. These are topics that will come together now with the development of offshore renewable energies. You also mentioned the LCOE being very high. Yes, but we see, for instance, wind, solar. Now they are competitive with conventional sources of energy. And we believe this will happen with offshore wind and with wave energy. We look to the learning curves, and how long it will take, I cannot tell you. But but from what we see from other renewable energies, we believe this will happen with also with marine or ocean-based energy technologies. I don't know if I responded to your question.
Absolutely, yeah, thanks, that's really interesting. And do you envision that stopping at hydrogen, or do you think of moving to green, denser energy carriers such as ammonia or methanol, for example, for use in shipping?
I have to say I don't really know much about this topic. The production of hydrogen is quite new for us. Sure. It's, I mean, it's a challenge also to understand the whole complexity of these projects. Electrolysis, the production and the electrolysis process also is a new process, but we are expanding our competencies in this field because we see it will be a topic. It's already a topic in discussion worldwide.
Absolutely, thank you very much.
Has anybody else got any questions? Mm-hmm.
Morning, I'm Chris Barrett from Kepler Carbon Recapture. At what stage do you look at a company who is like pre-seed? What point would you actually take them on?
Sorry,
if you were going to support a company, at what point in their formation would you actually look at taking them on, supporting them with their project?
From the early stage. I mean, supporting a company to develop a project, it's what you mean?
Yes.
At the very early stage. I mean, even when there is an idea on a draft paper, we can look into this idea and with our knowledge on the hydrodynamics, how a device behaves and interferes with the waves, we can start at this very early stage. And also, just to mention that in a very early stage, it's also important to communicate with the public what is if this device is going to be installed in Portugal, the public engagement. So even if when the project did not start yet, we interact and we share our knowledge with the companies. So.
Yes, so you provide technical services. Do you also help with finding seed funding for this as well, for a project?
We can assist in looking into what are the opportunities in Portugal for funding, and also putting together a proposal for applying for funding. Yes, we do this kind of support.
Okay, thank you. I'll be coming to talk to you later. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions? Mm-hmm.
Perhaps quite a broad question, but considering, as we've heard today, you know, the ocean makes up 70% of the planet, kind of dwarfing our terrestrial environment. I guess I would ask, kind of, what's best case scenario for the offshore renewable industry? Like looking 10, 30, 50 years down the line, what's the potential within offshore renewables in our societies moving forward?
Yes, can you? Okay. I will use as a reference the scenario of 1,400 gigawatts by 2050, and I use this one because behind this scenario there is a group of big players pushing for this. To have this 1,400, it's a coalition that was formed 2 years ago, and I think it will be. It represents, let's say, to avoid saying a wrong number. Yes, but it's 10% of the worldwide electricity consumption. So this is a reference that, because we have other references in the literature, but I think this one, because it's recent and it's led by the industry, let's say, it's my reference.
Thanks very much.
Thank you for this panel as well. So my question is relevant for the offshore vision that you then have. What about if I refer to it as onshore wave power? Do you have any thoughts on that? So there are a few companies now establishing onshore wave power, so meaning, especially now that we listen to ASPAN program, I was thinking, how will they try to, in their ports, incorporate that technology? You know, there are a few startups at least.
Yes,
if you
there is
the offshore sort of wave power with what can be done then in the ports and capturing the wave power towards shore. I'm sure you understand my question.
Yes, certainly. There is this possibility for wave energy. So wave energy can be deployed in the offshore, but also in near shore and also onshore, and can be integrated in breakwaters. So instead of using the breakwater just simply to break the waves, you can use this energy and incorporate in the breakwater some kind of device. There is, of course, other questions related with it's more near the city. What will be the impact in terms of noise, visual impact? There are always questions related with onshore devices, but it's a possibility. And the first plant that was built in Portugal was an onshore plant in one island, and then we were aiming to integrate this kind of technology in a breakwater here in the mainland, but at the end it was not possible, a question of investment or appropriate funding to go ahead with this project, but it's indeed a possibility. And there are, for instance, in Italy, there are many several projects of this kind, integrating wave energy plants in breakwaters.
Are you involved in those projects? Because I know there are at least two, Eco Wave Power, and there's the other Core Wave Power, two projects at least being implemented in Portugal.
Eco Wave Power I know, yes, they are developing a project at Douro Harbour with the Port Authority. We would like to see how this will progress. Of course, happy to assist the company if they need our support.
Good, good to know that they're on your radar. Thank you very much.
Yes, and just I take this opportunity to say that on the 30th November we are organizing our Wavec annual seminar. Each year is with a different embassy, and this year is with Japan embassy, so a mix of entities from Japan and from Portugal, and indeed the company that you mentioned, Eco Wave Power, is one invited speaker.
Thank you. Obrigada.
Great. Thank you. Has anybody else any more last question? Because we've run out of time.
Yeah, there was a question on the YouTube channel, just very quick. So the question was, what is the size of your typical investments?
Ooh. A typical investment. It totally depends if it's offshore wind or wave energy. And also it depends if it's a prototype or a wave farm. For a prototype, a first wave energy project in the waters, 5 million, maybe the developers will say it's more than this. It's the number I have in mind. Of course, if you go for a floating offshore wind, you talk about totally different numbers. If it's a wave farm, it's a different number. I mean, it much depends on the size of the project.
Thank you, Anna. That was fascinating. I am sure that anybody listening and anybody in the room has learnt a lot and also is delighted to know that you have test beds that they can use for their ideas. I look forward to hearing from you again in the future, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, I think we can take the masks off. Perfect. So you can hear me well? Nice. All right. Welcome everyone to the third and last panel of the Blue Economy Conference organized by the Ireland-Portugal Business Network. For those that joined us on site, it's really nice to finally see you and to be back at in-person events after a year and a half talking through video calls. For those that couldn't join us and are following us on YouTube, in Ireland, Portugal, or anywhere else, I hope you are enjoying the event, and we hope to meet you in the near future. So I'll introduce our guest speakers today. We have Sam Collins, Project Manager of Blue Network from the Oceano Azul Foundation. Welcome,
Pleasure to be
Sam.
here.
And we have Jorge Dias, co-founder and CEO of Sparus.
Yes, thank you for calling.
Thank you for being here, Jorge. All right, so I think we can start with Sam's presentation.
How about now? Yeah? How about now? Yeah? Okay. So thank you, IPBN, for having me here today. As Mario said, I'm Sam Collins from the Oceano Azul Foundation based here in Portugal. And I'll speak a little bit today about Oceano Azul Foundation's vision and then going a bit more into our vision for a new blue economy. But before I start going into Oceano Azul Foundation, I might repeat a few facts and figures that we're probably all tired of hearing, and it's been mentioned here today, to show how integrated we are to a healthy ocean and how key that is to a sustainable economy, and how nature needs to be really on our side for that. So we heard them earlier today, and I'll repeat them again, so you'll forgive me. But the ocean represents 70% of our planet. It provides every second breath we take and acts as an enormous decarbonizer, absorbing CO2. It feeds billions and supplies jobs for millions and provides renewable energy, as we just heard, and a means of transport. So essentially what I'm saying is it's rather important for healthy human development, and that's why Oceano Azul Foundation's motto is from an ocean's point of view. So we work exclusively to promote a healthy and productive ocean for the progressive human development. And before going into blue economy, I'll speak a little bit about the three time horizons that Oceano Azul Foundation has for productive oceans. So if technology is on my side. So ocean literacy is our long-term time horizon. That's increasing ocean literacy at the moment in the Portuguese first year of education. So we developed an ocean literacy program with the Department of Education. And this really aims to ensure that the Portuguese society in the next 10, 20 years is innately ocean literate, whether they're shopkeepers, journalists, world leaders, whether they're mechanics, celebrities, athletes, they're just inherently ocean literate, and therefore the decisions they're making and the behaviors they're exhibiting, they're understanding that their effect on the ocean and the ocean's effect on them. But obviously we can't wait for the youth of today to save us in 10, 20 years, so we have a midterm strategy, and that's where we implement marine protected areas. This is a proven method of regenerating degraded areas and preserving pristine areas. So we work in the Algarve, various other areas, but we also work in the Azores with the Blue Azores program. And this is all part of the push for protecting 30% of the ocean by 2030. But we also have a short-term, perhaps? A short-term strategy, and that's shortcutting the decision-making process and injecting, ocean literacy is important for the kids and for the schools, but it's also important for the world leaders because we can't all be experts in ocean. So with our short-term strategy, we aim to inject ocean literacy at the top, speaking with world leaders, decision makers, business makers, everything to make sure that there is ocean ambition and urgency at the top. And we do this through our initiative Rise Up, which is a common 10-year agenda for the ocean that we've amassed around 500 civil society organizations around, including business, academia, NGOs, etc., to kind of use one voice to push for an ocean ambition. But as I'm here today to speak about blue economy and business, another strategy in the Ocean Azul Foundation's midterm is our program, which we co-promote with Klaus Gulbenkian Foundation, called the Blue BioValue Program. Now this program is split into two parts: acceleration, where we work with startups and existing entrepreneurs, and ideation, where we work with research centers and academia to bring them to market and introduce them to market. And in acceleration, we're currently on our 4th edition, coming in October and November and October. And so perhaps before I go into this, I'll show you a short promo video just to give a flavor of what's to come in November, if it works, technology. So that gives a bit of a flavor for the program, and that's going to be happening in October and November as the 4th edition of the acceleration. We had 2 in-person editions, and then last year we had a digital version, and then this year will be a bit of a hybrid format with the last 2 weeks in Lisbon. But the program basically it's a shared vision, like I said, between Ocean Azul Foundation and the Klaus Gulbenkian Foundation to really move towards a new economic model where we dissociate economic growth from the degradation of natural resources. And this is key. We can't really, we talk about circularity. This is essential because we can't really have an economy based on degrading the very environments that provides it with its supplies of natural resources. So really pushing for that dissociation. And the program aims to promote creation of new ideas and grow startups that operate along a value chain of blue biotech and marine resources, and specifically those that offer services and products that contribute to a healthier and productive ocean. So blue biotech, the crucial aspect here of the program is to transform a new economic model, but reducing the impact on the natural environment. That's key here. And so obviously we focus on blue biotech, which focuses on... Have I just gone off? Oh no, I'm there. It focuses on marine biotas, and there's many, and we've heard today, many innovative ways to use marine biotas. And Blue BioValue aims to really kind of highlight, grow, and bring those ideas to market. Just for an example, as we're here in Portugal, the land of azulejos, there's some fantastic startups working, for example, in the bivalve, sustainable aquaculture industry. And they produce sustainable aquaculture for the food industry. They harvest the bivalve meat itself, and then they're left with the byproduct of the shells. And now traditionally, those shells would be burnt, and those shells are made of calcium carbonate. That releases the CO2 back into the atmosphere. That's a linear economic model. But the startups developed a system where you can grind down those shells into a powder form, mix them with sand, and create essentially a cement. You can then cast that cement as azulejos, and they're stuck onto our walls, our kitchens, our buildings, what have you, locking in that calcium carbonate, the CO2, for generations. So that's a decarbonizing circular economy. So there's tons of these innovative ideas, and Blue BioValue program aims to really kind of grow and scale these up. And added to that, as we've heard today, the blue economy, the phrase blue economy is being used a lot. And I think certainly at Ocean Azul Foundation, we want to be cautious that it's not a blue-washed version of the maritime economy. We need to really make sure that the word sustainable caveats blue economy at all times in this transition to a sustainable blue economy. So the words circular, sustainable, and decarbonizing are essential to the blue economy, which hasn't been the case perhaps in some aspects of the maritime economy. And then added to this fact is that the blue biotech, specifically the sector of blue biotech, is set to grow exponentially, certainly this decade. So that means not only can the sector contribute to being a solution to some of the challenges we're facing, but also creating jobs and skilled labor. And so those challenges I mentioned are here. So these are the 6 challenges that our applicants to the BBV program acceleration need to tick at least one of, and many of them tick more than one. So we've got feeding a growing population, health and well-being. We've got decarbonizing our economies, resource scarcity, circularity, and obviously plastic pollution is a big aspect of that. So these are the challenges that our startups face, and we usually get about 15 of them. So like I said, the Blue BioValue program is split into 2 halves, ideation and acceleration. Acceleration, we work with startups and entrepreneurs that are existing and try to bring them in front of investors to scale up. So this really aims to promote investment in new ideas in the blue biotech sector. And we usually start with about 15 startups. And like I said, pre-COVID, we bring them to Lisbon. They started in 2018 in the first edition. We bring them to Lisbon. We do a 6 to 8 week acceleration program. We bring mentors, experts in the field. We work in capacity building in business plans, in digital marketing, legal areas such as getting a patent, for example. But also the startups themselves, they get to cross-fertilize ideas. They stay in Lisbon, obviously, pre-COVID. They stay in Lisbon and they get to really learn from each other. A lot of them are working in different areas in the blue biotech sector. And it's fantastic to see, and so obviously the effect of COVID was a shame to have that digitized version. We had a larger reach in terms of geographies and a larger participation, but obviously the ability to be in person and cross-fertilize ideas is a really key part of the acceleration program. And then this culminates in a final pitch day, where we bring all the startups and investors and mentees together, and each startup pitches their ideas to win a cash injection in the form of a voucher for the BBA Alliance. And so this is a network which can assist the startups as they grow in the areas I mentioned, such as digital marketing, business plan growth, legality, etc., and really helping those startups scale up to market. And just here is a few what we call big numbers of the last 3 editions we've had. So we've accelerated 42 startups across 15 nationalities. We have a network of mentees across 10 different nationalities. And 70% of those startups we've accelerated have expanded their capacity, raising about 7 million euros collectively. So we're very pleased to see the impact of the acceleration program. But it doesn't stop there, because obviously acceleration is one aspect of Blue BioValue, but we also do ideation. So ideation does exactly what it says on the tin. It ideates new ideas, because I think as Pedro mentioned earlier, Europe is great at research, but perhaps not so great at transitioning that research into the market. So with BBV ideation, we work with the research centers, with academia, and really try to introduce them to how to transition their research and ideas to the market. And so really, I think the issue here, or the issue we're trying to solve here, is that these two sectors and experts often don't mix as much as they should, those in academia and those in the market, professionals. So basically we're trying to find new ideas to old industry problems. And we've had 2 pilots last year for ideation, one in Aveiro and one in Azores. And it was great to see the enthusiasm and the kind of area that the ideation program is solving. You know, a lot of individuals were quoted to say they're scientists, but they don't have business smarts. And similarly, perhaps in the business area, they have business smarts, but they don't have the science and academic skills. So it was great to see these two brought together. And one of the best things of Ideation 2020 was that the winner of the program in Ideation 2020 went on to apply to the acceleration program. They were then successful applying to the acceleration program, and then they went on to win the acceleration program. So we had a perfect proof of concept of a research or academic concept or individual that didn't have the business smarts to get to market. They then were ideated and were capacitated, and then they were accelerated and they got a cash injection and could get to market. So we were very pleased to see that proof of concept going from ideation, acceleration, and now at market. So we hope to see more of that in subsequent editions. So that was a whistle-stop tour to BBV. I know it was rapid, but basically we aim to grow and capacitate and invest in ideas as powerful as the ocean. As we've heard, it's 70% of our planet, so there's a lot of potential there. And I'll finish just a bit broader context, perhaps, that we discussed the pandemic. COVID-19 has really shown us that our economies are not by any means independent of nature and the planetary system. And I think we've been naive, perhaps, in our linear economic models in the past. And so it shows us that when nature fails, so do the systems that we rely upon. And I think in the conversations of the Green New Deal and Building Back Better, Building Back Bluer, we really need to make sure that our new economic models are more in tune with nature. And to that end, I would consider myself a bit of an optimist. And I would say that in this decade, which will be a decade of absolute great transition, I'd like to think that we're transitioning out of the Industrial Revolution era and transitioning into the Environmental Revolution era. And for that transition, the ocean will be absolutely essential. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sam. So I forgot to properly introduce Sam before. So Sam has a master's in quantitative methods in biodiversity, conservation and epidemiology from the University of Glasgow. Am I right, Sam? Perfect. And Sam manages the international initiatives and partnerships of the foundation and works to raise the profile of the ocean at the political and decision-making level. Thank you, Sam. Can I get another round of applause for Sam? Thank you for our presentation. All right, so now, Jorge. So Jorge is a marine biologist and holds a master's degree in food technology from the University of Bordeaux and in marine biology and fisheries from the University of Algarve. He also holds a PhD in fish nutrition from the University of Porto. He created Sparrows in 2008, where he is responsible for managing and supervising the production line operation, as well as product development and quality issues. Josh?
Thank you.
You ready?
Yes, I think.
Go ahead.
Sorry. So, good morning, everybody, and I would like to thank the organization for inviting us to be here, because we really feel that celebrating the World Maritime Day, it's worth doing it, as we all sitting here realize, and as Sam just mentioned, we are in a tipping point of really changing the way that we perceive not the near future, but in the next decades we have to accomplish something in these terms that now are very often mentioned with the bio-based industry, the green revolution, the blue revolution. Sometimes we get lost in all these revolutions. But this is a sign that as a society, and it's not only Europe, this will have to have an impact on a global basis. We will have to change our perception and accept new paradigms that will face us as a society. And so I will not make, let's say, a big presentation on aquaculture and the challenges of aquaculture and all that. Probably if some of you are or want to discuss this, we can do it in the Q&A session. So I will go straight to a presentation of our company, because we are a private company, so we also don't like to speak for a sector, because each one has its own particularities and has his opinion, so we prefer to present the way we see things and the way we do our work. So, Sparrows, some of you always ask me what does it mean, and for those of you who are less familiar, the scientific name, the Latin name of gilt-head sea bream, which is the most farmed species here in the Mediterranean area, dourada in Portuguese, it's called Sparus aurata. So the Sparus derived a little bit from that name. And we generally present ourselves as a science and technology-driven company, which is dedicated to either the development or the tailoring of nutritional solutions for the aquaculture market. So we are really focused on nutrition of the fish that are farmed in aquaculture. But of course, this covers a wide range of activities. Let me see if, oh yeah, it changes there, but not here. Okay, so Sparus was created as a startup of the Center of Marine Sciences of the University of Algarve. It's a research institute, abbreviation CCMAR. And we were two co-founders, myself and Luis, and we were both researchers at the Aquaculture Research Group. But at the same time, it was not that classical image of a startup of young graduates from university. We started the company, already we were in our late 30s. We had decades of experience in the industry outside Portugal. And when we, let's say, met again, I first met Luis in Texas in '96. You can see how far it was. But then we created the company in 2008 when we started working together back in Portugal. And the idea that we had was that we needed something, and we already heard in bits of the various presentations, which could somehow bridge a little bit the gap that some areas have between what is being generated in academia or in general as knowledge, scientific knowledge, and industrial practices. Sometimes it's not that research is far away. Sometimes it's that the means to execute under industrial standards are not guaranteed in the academia structures, or at least in Portugal, and then we realized that this was true for all southern part of Europe, and even to this sector that was not, it didn't exist. And so our mission has been since the beginning to foster this conversion of knowledge, of existing knowledge, of what is being generated into an industrial solution. And so when we created Sparus, we created it with two differentiation drivers, as we call it. One was we created a pilot scale facility to manufacture what we called in general terms aquafeeds, the feed specific for the aquaculture market. So it's a mini factory, but it is a very powerful tool to product development, to really test your concepts at the prototyping stage. And the second is that we also generated a network of all experimental facilities to test what we were prototyping as a feed. And so we managed to ally what we would say our scientific team of excellency in terms of nutrition with the technology, with the capacity to test. And I will not go into big details because at the end I will show you a video that gives us a broad perception of what we do. But for instance, we do things with salmon, with shrimp, with tilapia, with species that are not farmed in Europe at all, but that they cover a very broad range of applications. But of course, and this is something that we are quite proud at Sparrows, is that we are also generating, let's say, jobs for young people. For some of those faces at the beginning, they were our master students, our PhD students at university. So this is always, when I feel tired, I always try to think about this, and this gives me the energy to continue somehow, because this is also part of this revolution that we need to accommodate in the next few years in Europe. Just to give you an idea, because this is not a typical company, we are, let's say, the closest would be we are a private industrial R&D center to a certain extent, or at least part of the company. So we have highly qualified human resources. You can see that we have a lot of PhDs, a lot of master science people, people that cover areas such as marine biology and biologists, as you could expect, but also environmental, industrial engineers, because extrusion is an industrial process, biochemists, and then, of course, the supporting activities. We have divided the company in three main business axes or business units. The first one, as I mentioned, is providing what we call industrial R&D services, be it through running trials with the animals itself, being manufacturing R&D feeds. And I can tell you that in terms of manufacturing the R&D feeds, we are market leaders in Europe. We provide feeds for almost everybody in Europe that is testing something. And when I say Europe, we also make shipments to Asia, to Chile, to all big aquaculture markets. And then we also run trials for those third-party people that come to us during their research process. As I said, I will not go into detail because you will see it in the video. Then, of course, we also have our own products, because we didn't want to stay too much dependent on a service provider, because we cannot control a lot of our, let's say, future, because it's decided by other people. And so we created our range of products. We cannot be a big production capacity, because we cannot be pilot scale and at the same time at an industrial scale. So we had to target niche products, and we have products for the very early stages of fish, what we call the hatchery feeds, when these are baby fish larvae, and the zebrafish, which is a research model used in biomedical research to study cancer, to study cardiovascular diseases. Just to give you an example, in Portugal, one of our clients is, for instance, for the zebrafeed, is the Champalimau Foundation. It has nothing to do with aquaculture, but is used to study biomedical teams. And more recently, we have also initiated our activities in an area that we call nutritional tools, which is a software with the predicting algorithms that models the growth of the fish, a little bit in this transition into a more digital approach, it simulates things to reduce, for instance, research effort or animal welfare. We will need to run less field trials to validate nutritional concepts. And this is working pretty well, although we all see this digital aquaculture as a priority, but I can tell you the truth, the industry is not yet ready to accommodate this. So, but it's nice to be ahead of your time sometimes in some of these products. So we are also deeply involved in R&D projects. These projects here, for instance, are funded by Horizon 2020 and the different programs in it. And I've chosen these ones. We have, of course, some other projects active, but just to give you an idea that what we see in this project is the networking capacity, a learning capacity for us, because we are with the best, let's say, European partners in these topics, and we put this with a strong focus on the sustainability of raw materials. This will be a big change or a big challenge for the growth of the future growth of aquaculture. That was already mentioned, the circularity of resources, and we know that we have to increase the aquaculture production. Let's not be afraid of the word intensification. This will have to happen. What we have is to find the basis to do it in an eco or in a more sustainable way. And so we are working, for instance, in the magnificent project is dedicated to microalgae and macroalgae. The GAIN project is dedicated to circular resources with byproducts, with side streams of several industrial sectors in Europe. And the Seafood Tomorrow, for instance, is just dedicated to consumer perspectives of farming products and their quality. And then, as we have probably realized, for us, this scientific knowledge and all that is a key point for us to grow also, because we need to propose innovation to our customers. And so we are also deeply involved in all that relates to, for instance, the European aquaculture technology platform that sets the agenda for the aquaculture research in Europe. Also, we are part of several industrial PhD programs in academia, and we are sponsors of the Aquaculture European Students Group. And so, oops, it was not that. And so, to conclude, I will just launch the video. I think it will be done by them, yeah? And you will have a perception. I continue? Okay.
Sediada no sul de Portugal e orientada para a inovação, a Separos é uma empresa de cariz científico e tecnológico dedicada ao desenvolvimento de novos produtos e soluções nutricionais para o mercado da aquacultura. Com uma forte componente científica e uma plataforma piloto para a produção de alimentos, a Separos realiza serviços de investigação para empresas do setor da nutrição animal e comercializa produtos inovadores face às necessidades do mercado. Consciente de que a aposta em investigação é essencial para o sucesso, desde a sua criação em 2008, a Separos estabeleceu-se como um parceiro de referência a nível europeu para a prestação de serviços de investigação e desenvolvimento industrial. Produz pequenos lotes de alimentos experimentais para peixes e realiza ensaios de nutrição com peixes e camarões. Voltada para um mercado global, conta com um leque alargado de clientes industriais, bem como uma rede sólida de parceiros, dos quais fazem parte centros de investigação e universidades europeias. Equipada com tecnologias de extrusão, coating sob vácuo e microencapsulação, a Separos produz pequenos lotes de alimentos para diversas espécies de peixes e camarões, de acordo com as especificações definidas pelos clientes. Especializada no desenvolvimento de novos aditivos e na utilização de matérias-primas emergentes, a Separos realiza ensaios de nutrição com várias espécies de peixes e camarões, avaliando o efeito das novas rações em critérios como o crescimento, a digestibilidade, a apetência e a modulação do sistema imunitário. Fruto de um importante esforço de investigação, em 2015 a Separos lançou os seus primeiros produtos comerciais. Baseadas no conhecimento em nutrição de peixes marinhos, ingredientes de elevada qualidade e recorrendo às mais recentes tecnologias de produção, a Separos tem vindo a desenvolver a gama Hatchery Feeds, com microdietas premium para as maternidades de peixes marinhos. Em simultâneo, a gama aquática foi desenvolvida para a aquariofilia mais exigente. A Separos conta também com a gama Zebra Feeds, destinada a otimizar o crescimento e a reprodução do peixe zebra, a segunda espécie mais usada como modelo para investigação biomédica. E porque uma das suas preocupações é contribuir para uma aquacultura mais eficiente e sustentável, a Separos está a desenvolver ferramentas que permitem avaliar e prever o crescimento e a saúde dos peixes, bem como o impacto ambiental da sua alimentação. Desde a sua fundação que a Separos se voltou para o mercado global, desenvolvendo parcerias em projetos de investigação em consórcio com outras empresas e centros de investigação. A Separos é uma empresa de base tecnológica com recursos humanos altamente qualificados, apetrechada com uma gama alargada de equipamentos e tecnologias inovadoras. E trabalha diariamente para que a investigação em nutrição e alimentação de peixes seja aplicada na indústria, contribuindo para o desenvolvimento sustentável do setor da aquacultura. Separos, tailoring your feeds, tailoring your needs.
Thank you very much, Jorge. Unfortunately, Charlotte O'Kelly will not be able to attend today. She was also our guest speaker, but she was so kind as to send us a video explaining what she and TechWorks Marine are doing. So, are we ready to play the video? All right.
Good morning. My name is Charlotte O'Kelly and I'm the Managing Director and co-founder of TechWorks Marine, a marine data company based in Ireland. I would like to thank the Ireland-Portugal Business Network and Enterprise Ireland for inviting me to present at this Blue Economy Conference. I do apologise for not being in Lisbon in person, as I would have liked to be with you to meet and discuss opportunities with you. I am going to give you a brief overview of TechWorks Marine over the next few slides, and I hope that if you have any questions, you will contact me after this presentation. My email and phone number are at the end of this slideshow. We are leaders in the provision of robust, reliable and secure marine data to our clients. Established in 2002 in Dún Laoghaire, we have a multidisciplinary team who focus on the provision of real-time data buoys and marine platforms to our client base. This is from the platform design and sensor integration, right through to the provision of metocean data services under service level agreement to our clients. We also have focus areas in the area of Earth observation and marine innovation, which I will go into more detail in the next slides. This slide gives you a good overview of our development pathway up to today and our vision going forward. When we developed the business in 2002, we focused on ensuring our clients could collect data from multiple different sensors at sea to manage their operations. Being based in Ireland, aquaculture was an obvious initial focus. We supplied our first real-time water quality monitoring system into this sector in 2005, The system was basically monitoring oxygen, temperature and algae, so chlorophyll, to warn the fish farmers of impending harmful algal bloom events so they could take preventative action to manage their fish stocks. In 2008, we were awarded a tender by the Irish Marine Institute for the provision of the Smart Bay data buoys. This network of buoys is still operational today off the west coast of Ireland in Galway Bay, and it is now a national test site for marine technology and ocean energy testing. In 2009, TechWorks Marine started working in the tidal and wave energy sectors, where we were awarded framework agreements to carry out met-ocean resource assessment surveys for a number of tidal energy site developers. This included Open Hydro, who were a leading tidal energy device developer at the time, for whom we carried out surveys in the Ras de Blanchard in France, at EMEC in Scotland, at Torhead in Northern Ireland, and in the Channel Islands. We have also worked in the area of tidal energy for ENGIE in France in the Ras de Blanchard, for EDF and DCNS also in the Ras de Blanchard, and we've worked for Tocado in Mulroy Bay in Ireland. Resource assessment is one of the first studies carried out in the development of any renewable sites. So we were involved with a lot of the early site development that happened in this sector. We've also carried out a number of met-ocean surveys on wave energy sites, notably in Belmullet on the west coast of Ireland for the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland, as well as off the County Clare coastline for some private developers. Most of our activities in this area took place between 2009 and 2014-15, when the initial rounds of resource assessment were being done in this area. Then the focus was on developing the technologies that would be robust enough to survive these very, very harsh environments on the western fringes of Europe. At the same time, we started working with the European Space Agency, using Earth observation satellite data to deliver value-added services to our client base. We have a close working relationship with ESA to this day and have a number of ongoing ESA contracts at present, notably two which I think could be of interest to this audience. One, developing an E. coli data service. This is quite interesting in coastal communities, coastal cities, water quality management linked to the Water Framework Directive and the Marine Strategy framework as well. And the other one is using small data buoys, which I'll go into in a second, to look at validating ocean color data products. So, you know, people look at satellite data and they often think, oh, those are nice, pretty pictures. Well, our business is to convert pretty images into meaningful data to enable you to use this information to streamline your business operations at sea. So all these ESA type contracts feed into our service offering to our client base eventually, and that's been very successful for us up to now. So just going back a bit into our history, in 2012 we started working with ports and harbours, primarily involved in providing real-time water quality data to ensure compliance with dredging dumping at sea permits. But we've also carried out surveys in the area of marine acoustics and water quality. This is still a very active business sector for us. The third sector we operate in is water, notably providing marine surveys for both the environmental impact assessments for the development of new wastewater treatment plants, but also for the calibration and validation of numerical models in the design of outfalls, and also to assess the impact of outfalls, wastewater outfalls on shell fisheries, for example. We've also done some work in this sector, so with the European Space Agency, looking at desalination plants and oil in water in the UAE specifically. In 2018, we developed the Coast Eye mini buoy with the Irish Environmental Protection Agency. This development was entered into the Blue Tech Incubator program in Lisbon, in which we participated for using this product in ports and harbours for coastal water quality monitoring. We finished this program just before the COVID pandemic came down. And we are very keen still to this day to develop closer links in Portugal with the port authorities and also with coastal water quality managers through using this mini buoy system, which you can see here on the bottom left hand side of the slide. It's a very portable system, which I have a slide for to show you in a few minutes. And so just to finish off, I guess, in 2020 we were preparing to expand our business into the Middle East, but with the onset of the COVID pandemic, we decided to focus our efforts into the offshore wind sectors, providing metocean and floating LiDAR surveys in this area. We were successful in winning our first 3 contracts in this area for the Codling Offshore Wind Park, which is located on the east coast of Ireland, for floating LiDAR and metocean services. We do this in collaboration with our French partners in Aquaculture, who are our floating LiDAR partners. We are also ISO 9001, 18001 and 14001 certified, and have gone back now into looking to expand into the Middle East. So what do? Well, we provide a fully integrated end-to-end marine data service, from the design, development and deployment of integrated data platforms such as the ones you can see on the left-hand side. These are based around our core TechWorks Marine black box technology. So this is our data logger, which we design and make in-house. It is a robust data logger with multiple telemetry options for real-time transmission of high-quality marine data. This data is sent back to our base station, which is called Coast Eye. Coast Eye is the second product we develop in-house, which is a secure data portal which incorporates both temporal and spatial data through which our clients can actively monitor and manage their offshore data buoy networks, as well as visualize and analyze data from these data buoys. But they can also overlay Earth observation, so both commercial satellite data as well as freely available satellite data, and modeling, so hydrodynamic or wave model output, which can be overlaid over the data buoy data. This is the mini buoy I was discussing. Mini buoy is a very portable system which can have up to 3 sensor outputs. It can be deployed for multiple months in a kind of a covert way to look at rapid response to pollution events or to water quality deterioration, etc. What are we looking for in Portugal? I guess we're looking for new clients who are interested in marine data as a service, and also clients or agents for our Coast Eye data platform in the following sectors, which we identify to be ports and harbours, offshore wave and tidal site developers, and offshore wind site developers. So thank you for your time. Once again, I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. And thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Charlotte. I hope you are seeing us on YouTube. So now I think you can talk a little bit, discuss and ask a few questions. If in the audience anyone has any questions, feel free to shoot them and go ahead. Meanwhile, let me just thank also Filipa Saldanha, which was also our guest speaker, but she couldn't attend today. Well, so I have a few questions prepared, but I hope the audience also have a few questions. I'll start with you, Sam. If I got it right, since its launch in 2018, Blue Bio Value has accelerated 42 startups from 50 different countries, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Which have raised over 7 million euros to further develop their projects. So how do you help these companies raise money, and is that the most difficult challenge?
Yeah, I think, so that's correct. It's 42 startups in 3 years across 10 nationalities. And the BBV program acceleration does exactly that. It tries to, not only does it inject capital in at the end, when the startups do their pitch and the winners are chosen from the panel, we inject 45k to a number of startups through this, the Blue Bio Alliance network, which assists them in, like I said, digital marketing, legal services, business plan growth, but also connecting with raising more funds and what assistance is needed in that program. But I think a key thing of the pitch day is that not only do we have a panel and already aligned investment for the winners, but we invite a lot of investors to that event, so they can see not just the winners that are announced, but all 15 of the startups each edition. And at the end, you know, they can network and speak with investors and discuss where shortfalls happen, because I think a lot, and I'm by no means an expert in the startup world, but I know that a lot of startups and SMEs fail in the midterm when they need to go to that scale, they need to raise funds. So I think that really is the hardest section. So we were very pleased to see 70% of our startups that we have accelerated go on to raise significant funds to get to the next step, because I know that is the hardest step.
Great, that's an awesome number. So I would ask you to Jorge. So why the Algarve? Did you just want to live there and you had to find something to do? Because I can understand that. I love the Algarve. I was born there, and especially in Olhão, you have a lot of great places to visit. If you haven't been there, feel free to go. It's amazing. Or did you really want to make a difference in the aquaculture sector, and the Algarve was the best place for that?
Well, I'll be 100% honest. I did my degree in the Algarve, so I was formed at the University of Algarve in the 80s. And as I mentioned, both myself and Luís, I worked for many years in France. I worked then in Switzerland for very large multinational companies. Luís was in Norway, but Luís had already returned to Portugal a few years before me, and he was working there in the Algarve. And when I came back, or when I decided to come back and drop, let's say, a very well-paid job in a very large multinational company and decided to come back to Portugal, I also said, well, I will come back, but I will come back for a certain quality of life that has nothing to do with the, let's say, financial part. Just in the Algarve, because I did my studies there and I had a lot of contacts there, it was the easiest returning point to Portugal when I decided to come back. And so the Algarve made sense for that sense. And then we realized that the Algarve was perfect for creating the company, because when I returned, I didn't return to immediately create the company. I really returned to Portugal. Because we have the university, which is a very strong axis of in the aquaculture part. We have IPMA, which is the public research institute dedicated to the sea and atmosphere conditions, also with a huge research station very close to us. We have also a very friendly, let's say, municipalities looking forward to see this marine economy being developed. And so it was, at the end, we realized that it was the nice spot. And to what we do, we could be in many other places, it's true. But then if you can ally that with a lot of sunny days, it's even better. And now when we are recruiting, let's say, new persons, of course, we cannot afford to be competitive with European salaries. I'll be 100% honest, if I want to bring a new collaborator, let's say a PhD or something like that, that works in the Netherlands or in the north part of Europe, I cannot afford to pay him what is used to be paid. So part of his salary has to be in sunny days.
Perfect. So Portugal in general has great conditions for the development of the blue economy sector, right? The question is for both of you.
Yes, of course. This is what also brings us together. But I think that this notion, this simple notion that by having a coast, we are, it is our fate to be strong in bioeconomy, is sometimes hampering our vision on how this bioeconomy should go. Of course, it's much easier if you have access to water, but probably we have countries in Europe which don't have access to water that have a much stronger blue bioeconomy than Portugal. And this is something that we need to reflect, because sometimes we have these myths that persist in our society for decades. Aquaculture has a huge potential in Portugal. Let's be realistic. It has some potential if we make the right choices for making that aquaculture work. Not every species, for those of you who are less familiar, you have to understand that fish are cold-blooded animals. So they grow in function of the temperature of the water. And so you cannot compete, for instance, with bream and bass with Greece or Turkey, which have a much adequate water temperature profile. So they grow much faster there. Then we can defend our quality against their volumes. This is another topic, but I never saw a big campaign promoting our fish as better than the others. So there are a lot of things that need to be done. We see turbot and sole. There I can see a huge potential, and there it's where we see the industry holding on and growing. But then we start seeing projects with salmon, the offshore. It is a temptation, but our offshore has nothing to do with Norwegian or other types of offshore, because they are doing in cages in fjords. We have to go really offshore. So there is this myth that because we eat a lot of fish, we should produce hundreds of thousands of aquaculture fish. Yes, but we have to be very smart. And that's why we have seen decades of non-growth of the aquaculture sector. But for the bioeconomy that goes beyond aquaculture, yes, we have a huge potential, and a lot of very, very nice things are being done in Portugal. And I welcome you all to go and look for the biotech aspects of the marine bioeconomy. And Portugal, because it has a lot of skilled people, universities are forming a lot of people, and it has a huge potential. Then we missed some of these aspects that now the BioValue program is doing, because we generate a lot of knowledge. Now we have to facilitate its conversion into commercial or into industrial products.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'd add to that, agreeing completely that Portugal has huge potential in the blue bioeconomy sector in general, because I think not only does it, I mean, the huge exclusive economic zone of Portugal, by nature of the Azores and Madeira, as was mentioned earlier, offers massive potential. And I think with the post-COVID recovery conversation and the PRR, the Portuguese Recovery and Resilience Plan, coming out. You know, looking around the world, you have London is the kind of fintech center of the world. I would say North America, perhaps the agri-tech center of the world. And I think, you know, Europe in general has huge potential in that area, and Portugal specifically, due to its, you know, there's a wonderful association in Portugal and the ocean, and I don't speak as a Portuguese person, so I look on it from an outside in and quite romantically that it's a huge part of the history of Portugal. You know, you see it in the road names, in the names of families, and it will be a huge part of the future. And I guess the decisions that is made now will dictate kind of how that develops in the future. But you know, I'd like to think that Portugal will become the blue tech hub of the world. And I think with the resilience plan, having a focus on using the marine sector to come out of COVID and create a more sustainable, circular and decarbonizing economy is a huge step forward.
Great. I like that you're quite optimistic. That's amazing. So I think we still have some time for questions from the audience. I don't know if anyone has any questions or if we got questions on YouTube. So I have one more question prepared, but go ahead.
So, more than a question is a comment. I completely agree with, you know, the intervention of Sparrow's CEO in a way that of the business model that we have for the fish and seafood in Portugal. We must position that bioasset not to sell in volume, but to sell better. So we have to sell at a higher price what we have. And that is not easy to do. It requires a very targeted and sophisticated way of placing the product in the market. So we have to value a lot the product and also what is the content of the product. So a sea bass that comes from the Algarve, in the way it is farmed, in comparison with what happens, for example, in Turkey and Greece, is a different segment. Because it's like having comparing a chicken in a conventional, let's say, production with a chicken that is, you know, raised freely. And they are that, let's say, chicken is sold at the supermarket or the distribution areas at a different price. So here, I think the integration of IT and blockchain for certifying the product in terms and to enable the consumer that when it goes to buy that sea bass from the Algarve, he knows that the production where it came from, how it was fed with this sparrows, I'll say, food element and feed element and all of that. That will give, you know, the assurance to the final consumer that this is, I would say, a different experience and a different value that I'm having. It's impact. So it's communicating the impact. And that is, I would say, turning ESG so in changing the business model. And then you can, you know, position the existing products that we have not in a different, say, position in the market to a different consumer. Not for the same consumer that, you know, that is driven by price and not by the quality of the product.
May I just make a very fast comment? I fully agree. But this is something that we know and that we say in these types of events for the last 20 years. And it doesn't happen. And that's why, and now the plans are also, because that model that you are mentioning of selling this nice image, because it's true of this more, let's say, less industrial production system that we may achieve in these old salt marshes in the Algarve or in Aveiro or even in the Sado estuary, where we could produce in a more natural, friendly way. The message is relatively nice to convey to, and some of those farmers are managing but individual contracts with Migros in Switzerland. So even some people have tried to go into the organic farming system, because if you see the European policies for the aquaculture, the European Union set not as a target, as something fixed, but the wish of 30% of the aquaculture production should reach the organic or biological type. And there is very few people that could achieve it in a very easier way or without too much effort to achieve it. And one of them would be our aquaculture in Portugal. And this is something that, of course, is under debate, but it's hard to make. But clearly, differentiation of our aquaculture will be key. But when we go to the offshore projects that we have for Portugal, those will be a much bigger volume. So those will be competing directly more with the Greek or Turkish model. But this, to me, the best example is Ireland, because, well, I'm pointing at you, I don't know if you're Irish, but I'm...
Half Irish, half Scottish.
But it is the Irish scenario, because even in the salmon industry, at a certain point, the Irish decided, well, Norway is huge, Scotland production is also much bigger than ours, we have to find a way of the Irish salmon being differentiated in the market. And so they have a big fraction of organic salmon is coming from Ireland. And even for those that are a bit inside the different qualities in farming practices of salmon, for instance, if I have a choice in the supermarket, I will choose an Irish salmon. I'm not saying this because we are in an Irish Portuguese event, but it's true. It's recognized by that, although there are also excellent quality salmon in Norway or in Scotland and all that, but the Irish as a whole became identified as done in a slightly different way that guarantees that in the overall its quality, it's recognized as very good. Yeah?
As our Irish Food Board, just to answer that, Board B is our Irish Food Board, and they made a very, very conscious decision to step up, that we couldn't compete on price. Our wages are too high, and we're an island, so shipping is a huge part of our costs. And what they did as a result is said, okay, well look, you guys have to step up the quality of what you're doing. So we market all of our food as quality products, and that it's at a premium price. And we look for markets that are happy to pay that premium price. So the German market would be very organically conscious, the Swiss market, those French would be a big market for seafood. And it's done on the basis of a higher quality. Now, in reality, it's, you know, I don't know what the difference in cost between running an organic farm versus a normal farm is, but they're able to charge the premium on that basis. And they've done it for the entire food industry. The entire food industry.
And if you cross-sell Irish salmon with Irish whiskey, so
marriage made in heaven.
No, and I think that now, and of course I can only speak for my, let's say, the topic in which I feel close, which is this part of the feeds, because the feed, you have to understand that this, what we give as food to an aquaculture costs around 60 to 7% of the exploitation costs of a fish farm. So it is a big part. And also all that could be associated to pollution or to, let's say, an unsustainable practices are often very much associated also to the feed that we give the fish. And now, a little bit with this, let's say, very broad concept, we are promoting the use. I buy macroalgae from Ireland because we put in our feeds to give a certain pigmentation to the fish and avoid using synthetic pigments or synthetic products. So the concept exists, we are progressing. Of course, it has costs, but we all have to understand that this notion of the bio-based products, they are more expensive than, let's say, the existing carbon-based or carbon-derived products that exist at the moment. So we also have to, as consumers, we have to somehow show our interest in and willingness to pay a bit extra, at least in these stages where these industries themselves, they are growing. So it's impossible for them to be cost competitive with industries that exist for decades and decades. I give you the example of microalgae. We have in Portugal a lot of companies doing microalgae. It's a beautiful product that you take the sun, nutrients, it absorbs CO2, so it has the nicest storage you could have. But of course, it is expensive. People say, but you should use this in the fish feed. Yes, but then the fish feed will cost the double, the farmer cannot pay it. But we have to promote its use little by little so that we also give time for these industries to grow, to scale up, to mature, to cost optimize their business model, because at the moment it's impossible, but it's the only way we have to generate these sustainable resources.
I just want to bounce an idea off that, and that's where I guess I'd like to see progressive subsidies as opposed to harmful subsidies, where you can lower the cost of carbon negative products. I think that's where society needs to go. But just kind of hearing that conversation, I think, really it's about transparency. I think a few decades ago we wanted fast cars, expensive clothes, big houses, what have you, and now there's really a bit of a social awakening about the environmental kind of movement, and I think transparency in these products really helps to justify increased costs when the company and the supplier is making efforts to reduce their impact. And like you said, we're in a transitionary phase now where we have to pay premium for progressive products, and hopefully that cost can come down as the sector grows.
So I believe we could spend a few more hours discussing this topic. Unfortunately, we ran out of time. So we had the chance to get to know the Blue Bio Value programs from the Oceano Azul Foundation. Thank you so much, Sam, for your insights, and thank you for your help in developing so many interesting projects with the goal of accelerating the transition to a sustainable blue economy. Any closing remarks?
It's a pleasure to be here, and hope to be here again. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And thank you, George, for bringing a little bit of the Algarve to the discussion. I'm biased, but I really loved the opportunity to get to know a little bit more about Sparus, the new products and solutions you have been creating, and all the research it requires. I would also like to thank Charlotte O'Kelly, which unfortunately could not attend today, but still was able to demonstrate TechWorks Marine expertise in real-time marine monitoring. Thank you, Charlotte. In a few minutes, we'll have Raquel Abecassis, Executive Director of Invest Lisboa, who will host the closing statement of this conference. So don't go too far because we are almost done. I'd also like to congratulate Aoife, thank you, Arnold and Elish, and everyone at the IPBN for the help for pushing forward this event. And on my behalf, I'd like to thank you all again for attending today. And let me just thank our sponsors again. This wouldn't happen without them. PwC, the Portuguese Chamber of Commerce and Industry, thank you for your support. And to our executive partners, A-Green, Denser, thank you so much. Also to our media partners, the Portugal News, Essential Business, and Energize Media, thank you very much, everyone.
So, prefer the other microphone? Okay. So, good morning again. I'll begin to present what is Invest Lisboa. Invest Lisboa, it's the Lisbon Investment and Promotional Agency. We are a partnership between the Lisbon City Council and the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Portugal. That is the place that today is our host. And we have the support of ICEP, that is the Foreign Investment Portuguese Agency. I thank you the fantastic statements that we heard this morning, because they prove us that we have done some important steps until now for a scale-up of the blue economy. And in the next little minutes, I will talk with you from what is our perspective about this and around the blue economy, and what we can do to help to create this ecosystem and to help the scale-up of the blue economy in the world, in Ireland, in Portugal, and with this idea that we must join to be strong. So I think this is an important moment that we live now. I think finally we are facing a new era post-COVID, and I think environment and sustainability are the key words for the future, so that the blue economy, it will be surely a reality, a more important reality for the future. And we in Invest Lisboa had the idea that this will be the great bet for us to the future. Now is the time to explore new areas. The path post-COVID should be more friendly to the earth and natural resources, and the blue economy is surely one of the main important sectors that we are going to see to grow in the future. This is also, and this is important to the input that we have from the international institutions. And for example, if we think that the Green Deal is now the major strategic goal of the European Union, and that the priorities of the investments for the EU are in the ESG projects, we can see that things are changing and that we have here an opportunity. And from our point of view, Portugal and Lisbon in particular has unique conditions to play a major role in this new generation of investments. Our geographic location, our resources, and our exclusive economic zone that makes Portugal 6 times larger than our neighboring Spain, and that puts us in a privileged position if we compare ourselves with other countries in Europe, are important arguments to try to do something different here in Portugal. Also because we have fantastic climate conditions. We heard about that on this last debate. And we have a great dimension and biodiversity in our underseas. And this is also a richness that we must explore better. In 2022, as we said this morning, Portugal will receive in June the United Nations Conference of the Oceans, but we will receive also in March one of the major conferences about the oceans, that it's the Ocean Summit, and it's an annual conference organized by The Economist, and in the next 3 years it will be located here in Lisbon. And we think that this is not by chance. They choose Lisbon because they see us with the potential to create something different in the future here. So this, as we see it, is a big opportunity to attract attentions to Lisbon and make the most of it to show our potential to become the basis for the blue economy development. Our idea is to help the different stakeholders to join in a common purpose of creating a friendly ecosystem in order to make a scale-up of blue economy. Invest Lisboa is now working on a project of designing a great event that should take place as a follow-up of those two conferences. We don't have yet a date, but I think we should have it in the next few weeks. And the idea of this is to complement the political statements with the potential of the work on field. We want to show that the blue economy can produce good and effective answers in all domains if we create a true ecosystem that puts together in the same place science, technology, the companies and investors. So we are working in maximizing the potential of the blue economy as a big goal for the future. We think that we have the best conditions to do it in Lisbon if we compare ourselves with other cities in the world. No other capital in Europe has our conditions, including the privileged access to Atlantic, the weather, and most importantly, the richness and dimension of our exclusive economic zone. So I hope that this will be true in the next months, and I count with all of you to talk about this project and to try to do something different to take part of these changes that we are seeing in the world. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, all the guest speakers and the guests here and on YouTube. And you can follow our activities on the website, and we hope to see you again very soon. Okay? Thank you very much.